Okay, we'll open the meeting for Monday, August 22nd. Entertain a motion to accept the agenda as may be amended.
So moved.
Anything that's not on here?
There is liquor.
Do we have,
Lucretia's here, so I'm
does
guessing we do.
David know he's coming on? Is he in, or is he gonna
David.
come a little bit later from the golf course?
Oh,
He said he was gonna be coming, but he's not, he hasn't tried
Okay,
to
so
sign
then
in
we're
yet.
not gonna push him up.
Yep.
So
okay.
approve as is.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. We'll start with approval of the minutes of August 2nd, which was essentially
Just you and
executive
I.
session for the fire chief search.
So motion to approve the minutes of August 2nd.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
didn't see anything there.
No, it was just
Executive session.
but it was also preliminary to putting out the
Yeah.
advertisement.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye. We'll hold off on July 25th until Chris gets here.
Okay. Under Select Board member concerns, do you have anything?
I don't have anything right
Okay, I have one thing that's informational more than, it is a concern, though. We know that months ago, Chet had written to the state about trying to lower the beaver dams, and the answer we got back was that it had to be taken out by hand with them watching. Yesterday, I went down and walked the beaver dam. And the reason I could do that is because on the water side, there's a whole area that's just soil and mud. And I did have boots on, but and yes, it's the same height as it was when I got there. I didn't do anything to the
now. Same
dam.
height after you left?
But, yeah, it was still the same height. But in looking at it, I don't know how you could take that apart by hand.
No.
Very difficult. The dirt's slowly washing away in time because they're not putting more and maintaining it constantly.
Yeah. But,
In time, it mulches and rots
Kids
and
stuck
stuff.
on
yeah,
the left.
but that leads me to what is actually more of a concern for me. When I walked up River Road, I found 4 power line poles that are at least 3 feet in the water. And the bottom of those poles, if one of them even starts to tilt, they're taking down the power on all of River Road. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't contact Green Mountain Power to see if this is an issue. Are their poles designed to be in the water?
They're
But-
treated with creosote, anti-rot type stuff.
Creosote, which isn't allowed anymore?
Whatever the,
No, I'm just saying. But
They could kill the habitat, I guess.
I would be more comfortable having them tell us that it's okay for them to be there.
So
And
my,
then we can just continue with trying to
I think it's a good angle.
get it lowered.
yeah, but a month ago, and then I know we had a whole bunch of stuff going, we're supposed to have somebody go down and take pictures in a kayak or a canoe or something of the culverts that are halfway to full.
Yeah, Nicole's working on that right
And then
now.
we're supposed to set up a meeting where you get somebody waiting in the meeting room.
Nicole is in the process of
And then-
setting up the meeting.
Yeah, and then we're supposed to be meeting with these folks.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, I mean, I think what we really, it still comes back to the same thing as a month ago. We need to have the pictures of culverts being full or 3/4 full or whatever. And we need to have Sam, the guy with the house at the White House,
groom,
Sam
Sam
Groom.
Groom, yeah.
Thank you, Sam Groom, to come in, who's, I believe his septic field is getting flooded out at times. We need to have Andrew McKenna come in, and his neighbors, and others along the road there. And we need to make the case that it is bad.
Okay.
But we need to have someone from the state here.
Though that's what I'm saying, the state has to come.
Well,
And not just, you know, the folks that are telling us, we need to have somebody else from the state, like.
Well, the meeting that's being set up will have Zapata, who's the wetlands, it'll have Josh, who's streams, it'll have the people who represent the deal with the ownership of that land,
Right. I
They will
also
all
would
be
like
there.
to get the people that I brought in from the
Yep.
federal side.
Yeah, those guys.
Tom, I think,
Yeah.
is a local
Mhm.
and has been watching it for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And can give like the basis of what the water height was and
Right.
what it's doing, and, because it's one of his concerns.
Yep.
Because we're not asking to remove it, we're just asking to lower it
Right.
back down to where it was.
Yeah, so we just need
You
to,
had your hand up.
I did, I don't want to drag this out and take up all the time, but, I forgot where I was. I walked from the J hook down to the dam at the end of River Road that you're talking about. I wasn't looking at the culverts, I was just looking at the beaver lodge sizes. I came up with the idea of documenting the location of those and giving them a grade of 1, 2, or 3 as far as the development and advancement and number of animals per lodge, and then having a trapping or harvesting type strategy for the next 1, 2, 3 years.
Go with the pictures you're talking
yeah,
about.
Matt
That'd be
knows
smart.
Matt knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's a trapper. And
Okay, no, that's a good
and
suggestion
he's
to go
also-
with what we.
Yeah, he's also
brought
one
up.
that doesn't want to trap every single one of them. He wants
It's going to be
to,
management over time. Take 1 or 2 every year, every other year, and keep everything kind of close to where it is when we get it in the place that we want. The worst place of all is my own property, turns out, because I never am working in my yard. I go further out.
yeah, well,
So
farmers
between the
don't
town
work.
hall and Archie Baker Road, or a little bit north of there, is the worst.
Mhm.
I saw one out there the other day. It was crazy what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have water so close to my house now where before. I mean, it
Thank
wasn't
God
there.
it's a dry period right
Been a
now,
dry
because if
summer.
we had one bad storm, that could have a,
It won't go higher than the dam.
Let's stop there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
so just stop it there. Let's
Okay,
get,
yeah.
you get whatever, like the
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
I'm
grade.
going to make a pass for my own,
Yeah.
my own benefit, and I'll take a note on the culverts too. I wasn't
Yeah,
really
if
giving
you
that any
go
thought.
through and take pictures of the culverts, if you go out on your kayak or whatever.
Right.
So if you can do that, and we'll go from there. So Chris, all we did was call the order,
Yep.
approve the agenda.
talk about
We
beavers.
had the minutes, but we didn't do the minutes of July 25th.
we had the one meeting.
We did the meeting at Steve and I was for the fire chief.
Yep,
So I make a motion to accept the meetings of
25th.
July 25th.
Mhm.
Yep.
I didn't have anything.
no, I didn't hear those,
I was good with what was there.
Yep. as well.
Okay. All in favor of
You,
the minutes as presented for July 25th, please say aye.
Aye.
And then we just went through selectmen members' concerns. I don't have any right now.
I have none.
Steve does? Okay.
Nope.
So citizens.
So, between the people that are tuned in and you folks here, if you have something you want to bring up that's not already on the agenda, just, well, you guys can just raise your
These
hand.
gentlemen are here from the Greenbrier. So the two right
Great barn.
Great.
Oh, that's under-
Oh, I was going to say, I know the people at Greenbrier.
I'm like, okay.
Okay.
Great bonus.
Okay. Kurt's got his hand up. Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, I unmuted myself on my own. It's amazing. So.
Is that your question?
I just had a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Andy had brought up the inclusion resolution
We haven't
a
gotten
couple
there yet.
meetings ago, and I just wanted to know what the official status is of the Killington Select Board regarding the inclusion resolution.
I think that's number 7.
We haven't gotten down that
Yep.
far yet, Kurt.
Declaration of
Oh,
inclusion.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Please excuse me.
That's okay. Okay.
You want to lower your hand?
I'm guessing that's Kurt's hand, the one that's there.
Yeah.
Okay. Not seeing anything else?
I mean, I know.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I know Chet already answered, but just for everyone, I had concerns about short-term rentals and solid waste storage. Basically just with the increased bear population activity, you know, when you live here, you're renting here, you kind of learn what to do if you have one run-in, but when there's a short term, again, people new each week, the same mistakes keep happening with the bears and then they keep coming back. So I was just wondering if any, any thought were be pushed to regulation for the short-term rentals of bear-proof.
I think we're gonna get into that in a number 9, because I think we're gonna
Cool.
have lots of people talking about short-term rentals, and it's probably gonna drag on to there.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
okay.
I think somebody else had their hand up.
Brandy had her hand up. Did she
So
take it back down?
Yeah, I was waiting for the short-term rental discussion, sorry.
Okay.
Number 9.
Yeah, we'll be there shortly. Okay, so Lucretia, we have Board of Liquor Control.
Yes, we do. So let me start with the renewal. We have one renewal for Baja Burrito Company. All their paperwork is in order. They paid their fees. And it's a first class and third class. There is no outside consumption.
I'll make a motion for the town clerk to move forward with the liquor license renewal for Baja Burrito.
I have a question before the vote. It says the last seminar was 9/2021. How long is it good for?
2 years?
2 years.
Okay, I thought it was 1 year. All right, if it's 2 years, then they've got another year before they have to do it. Okay, that was my question.
Chris can't vote on this.
No.
Okay, all in favor of Baja Burrito, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Or no, it's the same.
Okay, and before we get to the new liquor license application, just wanted to make you aware that the Killington Pico Ski Resort has put in an application for a festival permit for their Killington Brewfest, which is going to be at Pico Mountain Village on September 24th from 12 to 5.
And they had
So
that there last year also,
Mhm.
and it's just another, so we don't, she's just letting us know.
Mhm.
Okay, and then there's a new application for the Grave Bonnet Inn. They are applying for a first class and a third class, as well as an outside consumption permit for their deck. I believe there's someone present from Grave Bonnet, if you have any questions.
So I visited the other day, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Paul. David.
Okay.
And went through, the place looks great. You know, all we're doing, if I'm right here, is approving for the town clerk to move forward with. Can we do that? Because one of the questions I had asked was the health inspector yet? Did the health inspector come in and give a health inspection?
No, not yet.
So are you capable of getting a liquor license without a health inspection?
You will not get your liquor license until the health inspector comes in and gives you a number.
But
So,
we can
we
approve
can
for this to
approve it,
move
yeah.
forward. Chris can't vote on it because he owns a liquor license.
Okay.
He's our go-to guy for questions though. So, and Lucretia's also our go-to lady.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to make sure, the outdoor consumption permit, he has a picture somewhere around halfway through of that. It's the original deck that was out there. It leads right off of the, restaurant. It's a dining area, or whatever. And the next page, he shows, you know, so it is fenced in. You know, but that's up to the Division of Liquor anyway.
And it's attached to the building.
And
It's not a
attached to
separate
the
structure.
building, and there's
Yeah.
entrances and exits and everything. So I don't see anything on that part there. You know, I did just go through letting them know that they would have to get the health inspector in, or your gentleman over here, that the health inspector would have to come in, so. I make a motion, and it's, outside consumption time period, what we've been doing is till 10 o'clock at night, not 11 o'clock at night.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, because we go by the state police rules or whatever of 10 o'clock for some reason. So that change there is gonna be 2 o'clock till 10 PM. All right? And Lucretia can make that fair. So I'll make a motion for the town clerk to move forward with the liquor license, first class, third class, restaurant, hotel, outside consumption for the Gray Bonnet Inn LLC.
Okay.
So, go ahead, I'll let you finish.
I think I'm finished.
Okay. No, but I'll let you finish the vote. And then
Oh,
I'll-
oh,
Yeah, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And
So,
was there
I
anything you
need,
folks wanted
I
to
need
say
you
to add
and
to it?
Steve.
Hold on, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
I apologize.
no,
I
it's okay.
forgot that you actually have to sign this. So if you could just take the page 5 on one of those copies and sign under approved. And then I'll just take that page and attach it to the application.
Okay. Oh, I got it. Okay.
And also, I just want to make you aware that they are changing the...
We can all sign on the same page.
Do we all sign it?
Oh, just
Yes,
the two of
you
us.
both, yeah, you
Two
both
of-
sign
just the
it
two of
under
us.
approved.
Just the two of us, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll take care of the rest.
All right, and we're going to give this to Chet, so he'll have it when you're looking for us.
Should we hold on to it?
And give it to Chet, and he'll bring it in tomorrow.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Jim was just making,
Okay.
And just to give you all a heads up that the process for approving these applications, renewals, they're moving to an online system. I think it's going to be very, I think it's going to be good. It's going to be much more streamlined. It'll probably make for a lot less work on our end, but just making you aware that the process is going to change a little bit. And I'm sure Chris is already aware. If maybe not.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
I have a seminar on it tomorrow.
and then while we have the applicants in front of us, Lucretia,
Yep.
if we just go through, so what was, I think it was what, $15 too much?
Was it I think, yes, on the zoning permit.
Yeah.
Was it 15 or 10, something like that?
$15 too much that you gave us? There was $500 for, it was a closed business, so you file $500 for reopening up a business that's been closed for more than a year or so. Then there was $30 for the recording of it, which will be recorded on Wednesday. And then liquor license or whatever was what, 110?
$115.
Well, he had added the outside consumption permit,
Yeah.
$20 fee to the
Right.
town check. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's $15, but at some point, I'm just gonna give you a sign permit because the sign is not, and that's $65. So I'll stop by and drop off the sign permit. You just take a picture of the sign, says as is, and then we'll just even up the fees from there. So I'll subtract $15 off.
Yeah, the same exact sign anyway.
Yeah, but it's, technically, it should have really been taken down.
Really?
Yeah, like after 6 months. Is that what
Up
it is?
for Years.
Yeah, somebody
Yeah.
was,
Many years.
I wasn't the zoning administrator.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so I'll just stop by, all right?
Mhm.
And that's it for that.
Okay.
So,
Good luck, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank
The
you.
place looks great. I saw some of the rooms and
Oh,
the
great.
restaurant looks great, everything.
Are they be opening up this
So-
coming season?
When he gets his liquor license and health inspection.
probably a month and a half.
Oh, good.
Then the help.
Yeah, good luck there.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have the Declaration of Inclusion.
Yeah, that's Andy Solomon.
Mhm.
Last time when I first introduced this officially to you guys, Jim had a question or wasn't happy with the statement, and the statement that he wasn't happy with was implement means to the enactment or furtherance, and that's, I can't say the word. Furtherance, thank you, of plans, policies, and program procedures, and relevant training, which support and advance the intent and spirit of the declaration. The revised statement, which I'll give you right now.
I think
We have it here.
Actually have
They
that
have it
here.
here.
Oh, you have it?
I printed it for everybody.
You submitted
Okay.
it and he printed it for us.
Okay, good. The revised statement says implement means the development of plans, programs, and initiation of actions which support and advance both the intent and spirit of the declaration. Some ideas are found in the resources section of vermont.org. For more specific information, guidance, and assistance, please consult the following: the Vermont Office of Racial Equity and the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. That's the revised statement. Does this satisfy your needs now?
This was
I
presented
read
at the
it.
last meeting,
right.
the select board asked for a copy of what our town policy already includes, and I've included that with your packet.
Right, that's what I thought it was.
And it's for your information.
You have an extra copy I could have?
I can give you mine.
I was
Okay,
going to say,
good.
we'll get you one,
I
yeah.
mean, I got, yeah,
Thank you, Jim.
and it's up on there as well.
So, first off, I'm a little off this week. I was in a car accident last Monday, and I have a concussion, so bear with me if I'm losing some words at times. But I just find it a little, we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and this is a select board. And the response to the Killington Select Board would have been enough relative to concerns voiced by member Jim Half. I think we all had concerns. I specifically don't like being singled out.
I had a question also. I had the first question.
You had the first question. You started the conversation.
No.
You know, and I appreciate the revised statement, but I believe one of the things that I had asked, I think, was how does one do such enforcement? Because part of the inclusion statement spoke about more than just town employees. And the reason why I think you included the town handbook was to make sure that what's in this inclusion is in the town handbook. So can we first go through that, if I'm right?
And that's what this is.
So did we match, like, I mean, I
I
would.
mean, when you look at it, it talks about, you know, everybody's protected based on federal law, qualified individual with a disability, respect to all employment practices. Vermont law also prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation, ancestry, HIV status, place of birth. It is also unlawful to retaliate against employees who have alleged employment discrimination. Examples of harassment include insulting comments based on a person's race, color, religion, sex, gender identity, marital status, national origin, age, pregnancy, genetic information, veteran status, disability, sexual orientation, ancestry, HIV status, place of birth, aggressive bullying behaviors, inappropriate physical contact or gestures, physical assaults or contact that substantially interfere with an individual's ability to perform work, creates an intimidating or hostile work environment. And there's no retaliation allowed. And the town will not tolerate unlawful harassment based on a person's race, color, religion, sex, gender identity, marital status, national origin, age, pregnancy, genetic information, veteran status, disability, sexual orientation, ancestry, HIV status, place of birth, or membership in a classification protected by law. Likewise, the town will not tolerate retaliation against an employee for filing a complaint of harassment or for cooperating in an investigation.
So I'll just summarize what I reviewed this, and I think that this allows us a rule of which we can terminate or we can, you know, speak to an employee of such ill action.
Correct.
This is a more of a proactive stance that they're looking for us to take. Not, and I don't know where this leads though. that's where, I think we talked last time, and we spoke, like, what are we supposed to do with this? I think it means that we're gonna develop plans and programs, you know, and the initiation of actions, but I don't,
Hey, Brandy,
Yeah, hold on.
you're unmuted.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay.
so, this is where, like, this is a policy, and it gives us enforcement. This is again, kind of like a broad paintbrush.
Yeah, but this goes to, even with just that little statement, the change there is the implement, but the structure went beyond our employees, and I think that was one of the things. we
Yes,
had
I agree.
said. And then if you can go to.
But this is only- yeah.
Can you go to the email and pull up the,
The original inclusion statement?
no, where it tells us, because you were able to, the revised statement, so the email you sent out to us, the inclusion statement initiative, it allowed me to go to the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion.org website.
No, it's not under Andy.
Select board members, whatever.
Declaration.
Yeah, so there was a declaration.
So the revisions?
So if you can, no.
Well, that's,
so-
if you're
so-
looking for what's on this, I have it.
No, click on it, please.
Okay.
And then it takes you, or one email you sent me to allow me to click on that, or can you just,
What it did is it didn't,
Oh,
it allowed
This
you to
is-
go
I gotta
in.
enable it.
yeah, you can go to that yeah.
So if you can go into that declaration, because that's what it's telling us to do. Some ideas are, and if we can get into that, and I just want to,
How about that?
Copy paste,
I
control
don't
click.
think, but this is not directed at employees.
no, it's not, and that's what, but, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, I mean, or we just do Vermont, if you just go up into your Google up above and just Google,
Got it.
you know,
This part?
yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to go to that link chat.
You got it there.
So scroll down, and can you clear out the participants, like X them or minus them or whatever? Scroll down, keep going.
You got a
It's got me all
menu,
the way down right now,
you got a menu it.
Oh, you got a menu, you gotta hit it.
up top. Read the declaration.
No, there's, I think
What
you
did I
click
hit?
on Vermont, just click on that picture or whatever, maybe.
Presentation of the declaration is what I hit.
Oh, municipalities and other organizations in the red. Okay, so now go down, keep going. So now go to supporting towns and cities. And then there's all the towns and cities or whatever. Can you click on, I don't know if, I'm forgetting, so no. So now go
No.
back to the next, go back again. So go down to, keep on going, keep on going. We'll get out of that. So now supporting organizations. Okay, and then go into, okay, then go to supporting documents. Like I'm telling you, I did this, but I'm forgetting what I did. Here we go.
There you go.
All right, so now go into the state of Vermont. I think the governor was on, so go to the state of Vermont executive. Go into that. And so, I mean, this is more of like a statement or whatever. The other thing was asking us to sign, and, you know, and then keep on going down, but it starts getting into, therefore I, Philip B. Scott, commend, whatever. So now he starts going in, so the top part before that is more of like a statement or a mission statement. But then the governor is going on here as far as saying that, you know, the state of Vermont formally condemns or whatever, but the second week in May be known as Inclusion Week, and I call upon all Vermonters to denounce prejudice to openly acknowledge or whatever, given under my hand. So what I'm kind of lost that, like, if the governor is already doing this for the whole state, if we already have it in our handbook, but if you scroll back up to the top, So right there, like, I mean, I don't have any issue if we come out with, I think when COVID first started and we had one group of people that wanted us to make a statement, Chris, you weren't on at that time, but they wanted us to make a statement about, you know, wearing masks and being respectful to others and everything else. I mean, whereas that stuff there, I don't have a problem with that. It comes back to how do you enforce the other stuff? Because there's still the original, and it says there'll be policies and procedures. And even if you go down like a little bit here, keep going. The state of Vermont is, okay, stop here. The state of Vermont is committed to identifying overt and implicit biases and systematic racism throughout state government systems and functions, and then to eliminating racial, ethnic, and other cultural disparities that may now exist within state government as one of the largest employers and as a provider of a. So now all of a sudden, the governor here is also keeping it to just government employees. Scroll down a little bit more. Now for the state already, okay, keep going. Let the second week, you know, and then he said, I call upon all Vermonters to denounce, and I don't think there's anybody in this room that is against that stuff there. I'm still just stuck on the original, where it's calling for us to put procedures and policies in place to, I don't know, if somebody all of a sudden.
But this thing looks like a policy that's already in place.
Right, but that's what I'm getting, so that's our policy in place for our employees that we're in control of. Not in control of, that would be probably a
But for us to
wrong
support,
word to say.
Oversight, how's that, oversight?
but if we were to
Oversight, right.
support, I mean, we support the initiative of the governor, obviously.
Right, so that's where I'm
So I
coming
think
from,
if
like,
we
as well.
support that, then we support it. But I don't, adoption of anything different than what's in our,
I mean, I almost feel like
our
if we take a
handbook.
look, if we take a look at the governor's letter here, I mean, it ends there, right? Is there anything else
Yeah, no.
further down?
No, that's his
Yeah,
signature.
that's
That's
the
the
seal.
signature.
So, I mean, just look at what he's written. And there's nothing in here that's saying that they are doing, then they're not. This is just more of, I think what you were getting at in the first place, Andy, it's a statement, and and this is what the governor's saying. So, I mean, there's nothing in here that says that the governor for the state of Vermont is putting a policy in place. He's saying that he supports this. And I don't have any problem saying, well, not word for word, because we have to take out the state of Vermont, but if we make the town of Killington and, you know, if it says governor or whatever, we have to take that out.
Well, and the question
What
is
would
it
you
a statement of
support?
support of his document?
that's what
Yeah.
I would think.
You know what I mean? Like, you just make a statement of support that you agree and adopt his mindset or
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we have Bob on. You're not muted, Bob. Are you following what we're saying here?
Yes, both Al and I are on, yeah, I just think that you make it very complicated, and the proclamation you're looking at is the second of the governor's proclamations, in which he is declaring the second week in May as Inclusion Week. Isn't that right, Al?
Well, he goes on more than the second week.
He does it.
I don't think he's saying that all this stuff has to only happen on the second week.
No, he's calling it Inclusion Week.
What is that?
He's just saying that
Go to the
that he
top.
wants, that he wants.
He proclaims a number of things.
Go to the top.
Yeah.
No, this is proclamation of inclusion, State of Vermont Executive Department.
Of course.
I'm saying that would be a proclamation of inclusion that the town of Killington stands by
Supports the proclamation.
supports the proclamation of inclusion of the State of Vermont Executive Department. This is not just about the second week of,
Is there another proclamation
can
he
you go
made?
back to whatever?
If I might intervene, and I think, as Bob said, you're making this really kind of more complicated than it actually is. Some other towns have modified the original Declaration of Inclusion that we provided, and what they tended to do was to enhance it. Nobody took anything away. Not a single town took anything away. They enhanced it, and they enhanced it, I think, because they really understood what the intent of this whole effort was. It was not to protect themselves. It was not to bind themselves to anything. It really was to say that we want our community to be a welcoming community. We want everyone in the town to know that we welcome new residents. We welcome people who can bring their talents and skills to this town. It also says to the towns next door that we are a welcoming town. It also says to the state that we believe that
Can you go to
we
those
want to be part of
original
a welcoming community. That welcoming community being all of Vermont. We asked the governor early on to support our Declaration of Inclusion, and the governor said, I not only support it, what I'd like to do is to issue a declaration in a different form. And so he chose a proclamation form, and he chose to do two forms. One being in the form of supporting the Declaration of Inclusion itself as we wrote it, and the second being to enhance that and to make it more important by designating the second week in May as Inclusion Week. And several towns, and in fact several business organizations, have in fact celebrated that week by having seminars, workshops that were open to the public, as well as, for instance, in Milton, an ethnic inclusion day on the Saturday during that week. Different businesses have done different things, and different towns have done different things. The implementation piece of it, which you've been talking about, is important in that it goes beyond just the words that are on the paper and begins to do things which provide welcoming. If you're a marketing organization, I don't want to get too far in this and carry this, but you know, if you're really trying to enhance the reputation of your organization and your town, and you're sitting right next to another similar organization, you want to do something which is competitive. You're selling a bar soap, you want to tell them why your soap is better than the next guy's soap. You can't sit back and say, well, we sell soap, and expect that in fact you're going to realize whatever your goals are. The state is losing people. The state is struggling to keep its young people here. The state is struggling against other states across the country and even internationally to develop businesses and to maintain, and not only maintain a strong economic environment, but to grow one. And so we have to do something that's kind of different here. And so rather than sitting back and saying, well, yeah, we've got mountains, we've got recreation here, we've got a great clean air environment and lack of violence and all these other things by comparison to other states, here's what we want to be, here's what we aspire to be, and here's what we intend to do to show that we welcome people to come to our town and to our community. And so I urge you to think expansively as opposed to trying to figure out a more narrow way of resting on what the governor said. I think it's important you design your own, and that's where you're on your way to doing that in changing and revising, and I think, frankly, improving vis-a-vis the last information I got from Bob. This is my first meeting I'm attending with you, so pardon me if I'm misstating or misconstruing.
I think you speak very well to it, Al, and I wish you were here on the first meeting with it, because I think you articulated very well. I think we kind of took this as when we were going through it, directing it more a policy.
Well, it's right
that we
there.
were yeah.
It's
But
right there,
also
the goal statement.
the
Is this
goal
screen
statement.
shared?
But we looked at it and we asked the question, who is this directed at? And this is when we ended up back at our policy of our employees.
So Al, you weren't at the first meeting a month ago or whatever. You know, the goal statement, is this shared that you can see it on the screen? Al and Bob, okay. So where we are at, and nobody here is looking to take the hard way, we're looking to do the right way, okay? And I think we're all looking to do the right way. I don't, you know, like when someone says you're making it harder on me to get my point across, I don't really like that. But goal statement, it says implement means the enactment and furtherance of plans, policies, programs, procedures, and relevant training. And we were like, who is this for? Because later on in the document, it talked that this would be to all of our visitors and all of our townspeople. And we as a select board is only in charge of the town manager, and then he has a handbook that we just went through, and that's how we got there. So I'm like, if we go away from the goal statement of saying that, you know, that this means to me that we're gonna be putting plans, policy, programs, procedures, and relative training which support and advance the intent and spirit of the declaration, all we're saying is we already have that for our employees in their employee handbook. How do we enforce that outside of our handbook to the community members and our visitors that come from all over the world? We don't have that control as a select board. That's the issue, and that's, I mean, I think Bob and,
Andy.
God too. You can be God too.
You know,
Well, thank you.
I think they will tell you that we were having a very well-going conversation here, and nobody is trying to put up a roadblock on this. We're trying to make sure it's done right.
Yeah, I believe that. I think Bob showed me and talked with me about that last sentence, and as I just said, I think what you came up with where you started out, the revision that you made in the meeting really, in my mind, addresses that particular part of the implementation. I thought that was fine. A number of towns have anti-discrimination provisions and policies and employment policies which talk about not discriminating against. I think if you look at it, you know, an opposite way, you might say that in your town documents, not your employee handbooks, although you might include this in your employee handbooks, that we welcome. I mean, you know, one of the things you look at, are we welcoming people of all races, genders, ethnic persuasions, etc., as opposed to we won't discriminate against them. That's a much more affirmative kind of way. Some towns have posted the statement on their website as an affirmative way of promoting their towns. Some towns have put signs saying we welcome people you know, in concert with the Declaration of Inclusion. Various towns have done various kinds of things, so I think, you know, it comes down to Killington is different than Mendon, that's different than Pittsfield. You have to do what feels right to you, I think, within the intent and the spirit of this. But this goes beyond an employee handbook. It's really the umbrella for how the town wants to have itself perceived. You know, if you've got an environment in that town where, you know, you feel that you're not doing anything to discriminate on one hand, on the other hand, you're doing all you can to welcome people, then that's probably fine. But I suspect that you're not there. I'll give you an example, if I can talk for another 30 minutes, 30 seconds, so not 30 minutes. I decided that I wanted to be buried in a town right next to Killington, and I met with the guy who ran the cemetery, and I said, I want to be buried right here. I want to be right near that guy right up there. And he said, that's really fine. That's really fine. Do you mind if I show you another part of the cemetery? And I said, sure, be happy to look at that. And he went over and he showed me this plot, and the plot was right next to a guy whose name was, I think, something like Leroy Scott. And I said, well, why Leroy Scott? He said, well, you know, Leroy is black, and I thought you might want to be buried next to Leroy.
So Al.
We can't help stupidity here.
Come on. We can get a hold of Truman Bates, and if there's any slots open, anyone you want.
We'll give you a deal.
No, we won't give him a deal.
We'll
give you fair,
my
equitable
God.
pricing. But what I'm getting at is that, you know, I'm talking and you're talking to me, and this is stuff like, to me, it comes natural to me that this is the way it's supposed to be, and I get where it's coming from, but it's just, to me, was the plans and the policies and the programs. And Andy and Bob, you have to admit that when we did ask a month ago, was this for our employees? And at one point, the answer was yes.
Well, it depends.
It was yes, it was yes. And then when
yes.
somebody from the audience said, well, I'm reading this, then it was, oh, yes, it includes all the, so Al, how do I make a policy that is going to make someone that comes into town that's looking for a burial site and wants that specific spot and is told to go to the back of the bus? How do I get a policy, and this is where I'm coming from, is like that then you come to the town and say, well, this is what you wrote in your policy, now I expect you to follow it, but I have no control of that person. And that's where I was personally coming from. And I mean, personally, if we didn't live in these days and times and you came to me and told me one of my employees told you that, that person wouldn't be working for me anymore. So, but that's me.
Well, because we can control
I
the
think you
employees.
want to avoid getting there in the first place, and that's what, as I said, this is an affirmative.
Can you scroll
It's
up a little bit?
It's a positive statement. You're talking about after the fact, in a sense. As I said, I think the language which you came up with as a result of the last meeting you had, I think that from my perspective, that addresses it very well. I mean, one of the things you can do, you actually don't know where bias exists, and regardless of your signing or adopting any kind of policy, I can well assure you, with my life at stake, that everybody in town's not going to agree with that. But I think if you set a tone of saying the leadership in this town, and that's who you are, says, we believe these things, this is what we stand for as a town, I think that goes a long way to assure that the town, in fact, begins to be perceived as a town that is welcoming and where people can, of all persuasions, can come, belong, feel safe, bring their families, start and run their businesses here just as I do.
So the statement that's up on the board right now, Al and Bob, I mean, to me, that's where I was like, everything is fine. We do have that in our handbook about, you know, in a way. But what I'm being asked for is that the select board of the town of Killington condemns and welcomes all persons and keeps on going on. And the select board and our signatures and the select board on this date, stop there. If I have no issue, it's the next batch that was really getting us going of, I don't know how we go into that goal statement. And that's, you know, and it's the third one, you know. So number one, to have each Vermont municipality adopt, well, okay, I can't do that, but it's me. So I would say the town of Killington would adopt the above. Adopt means formal approval by, so that would be this board adopts it. But the implementing that, this third one was where we started getting into questions, because it goes further on to talk about guests coming into the area. And, you know, God, I can't even probably do that to people that currently live in town. I mean, It's not the job of a select board member. So.
The implement was the key action word.
Right,
Are we
the implement
capable
is-
of implementing the fact of all these programs and procedures?
And so what we
Even
got.
if, and even if your plan is to implement them, you know, we come up with an implementation plan, and then somebody says, well, that
You
doesn't
didn't do
cover
it.
this.
But
and
the
we didn't do it
revised
right.
statement really just, we weren't I guess I wasn't asking for the definition of implement. I was asking, how does one implement? And what I got here is a revised statement, and it's telling me what implement means. I'm 61
it
years
also-
old, I know what implement means, and that's the issue I have.
If I might interrupt, it also refers you to the State Department of Racial Equity, and it refers you to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, which has developed what I think is a very fine program of ideas that towns can use to implement this policy as such. And in fact, they are having a workshop/training session in the next month or so for those towns that volunteer. And a number of towns have volunteered already, first go round, to participate in that. And so out of that comes ideas which you take back to your town, some of which are pertinent and some of which are not. You pick and choose from that what you feel is needed. One of the ideas is possibly,
No, it's down below.
Oh, yes.
I'm listening to you, I can.
You go out.
okay, an open forum where you have an opportunity for people to talk about, you know, issues affecting this town and how you bring people and entice people to come to this town and bring their talents and their skills, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So this policy, all this policy is doing, it's a philosophical statement which brings to bear some ideas which you draw from to then create a program, if that's the right word, that you can live up to, that you can do to bring your town to a point where it is viewed by everyone in the town and by others as a place that is belonging. And so the answers, you don't need my answers from, the answers are in those suggestions, and that's the linkage that we provided already at the bottom of the page that you looked at, I saw when this part of the meeting started. I think that answers your question.
We want your input, so, and we're listening, and I then obviously have gone through the document that was sent to me, and I've now, because I read through the Middlebury, Vermont Select Board statement, and this is, can you go down further where, so we can, so this is talking about committees. So, getting a committee together, education, the Select Board commits to investing in additional staff and board training around topics. I mean, how does, you know, we're not Middlebury. We're not, we have a topic coming up in, I don't know, 2 or whatever, that, you know, short-term rental that we're probably gonna get our butts handed to us for, you know, raising a fee. So when I looked at the stuff that was given to me for that one change, once again, I don't have an issue with saying the beginning statement and that I truly stand and go by that. But to try to take it to the next step of saying that there's going to be a committee formed, that there's going to be representation, that there's going to be education, and there's going to be additional staff. I mean, I don't know how we do that.
Well, if I might interrupt, several towns have done it already, and they've done it at no cost because everybody there is a volunteer. That's number one. Number two is that the Vermont Community Foundation has, I think, a couple of $100,000 available for towns, and 5 towns have now applied, in fact, for funding to move the declaration and all that it says along. So volunteers, Bob, Norm Cohen, and I have been involved with this for a year and a half, And we've got 63 towns now signed up with a lot of work that we do that we're not being paid for, and we're doing it at no cost. Other towns that have put together a diversity equity committee, and as I said, several of them, that doesn't cost anything. Perhaps the recommendations coming out of that committee may or may not involve cost, but that's a decision which you make in the future. You're not obligating yourself to spend a single dime right now. What you are obligating yourself to do is to set a tone and an environment that, once again, is welcoming and open to all people. And I've got to believe that if the Chamber of Commerce says this is good for business, and I think we all know the Vermont Chamber of Commerce as being a relatively protected, conservative organization, but business-minded. And they have said this is good for the state. And the 63 towns that have adopted already obviously feel the same way. So not a dime is going to come out of. You don't have to go to the population of Killington. I live right next door, as some of you know, to ask for any money. That's not the effective argument at this point.
What do you want to do?
I think there's some, I mean, I go back to my statement. This policy, and we were led down this road through looking at our staff stuff, is reactionary. And this is a policy of which we're adopting in general terms. I think it'd be worthwhile to sit through, look at some of the Vermont Leagues, the city and town stuff, and I think we can adopt some language that is supportive of this. This is a document that is proactive. It's not a reactive. Our employee harassment discrimination, that is a reactive piece that gives us justifications to fire somebody, okay, or let them go.
Well, but it
We're
also-
talking about a proactive
It also
statement.
gives someone that feels slighted a way to
I
register
feel
a
slighted
complaint.
that only
Yeah.
my name is on here, that you guys didn't have any concerns the last meeting.
You wouldn't stop talking, guy. That was the
I
issue.
never stopped talking.
So,
So what I'm getting at, Chris, is that I understand what you're saying, and I agree what you're saying
Yeah.
there, but be reactive and whatever, and proactive, whatever, but the minute I sign something that says that we're going to go to a committee,
I don't know that we do that.
It doesn't say we have to do a
I don't
committee.
think we have
That's
to
what
do
they
that.
chose to.
That's why I think we could look at some of the other policies that have been adopted. I don't think we have to go as far as Middlebury, but I think that we can find something, and if we found reason to build upon it, we could. But if it just, adopting something in a general statement is in a proactive way versus a
all right,
reaction.
I guess what it is there'd be a small committee, select board member, whatever, maybe Al, Bob, and Andy, and going through whatever, but coming up with, but I still think, because I know the last time it was going into, I'm just not into an agreement of having a committee that sets policies, because I don't think,
I don't disagree.
I can't
Yeah.
enforce that.
We set policy.
It's the active phrase where it says means the development of, I mean, the goal is that you want to work on things to make sure that you're inclusionary, but you don't want to, the statement that says you have to is the question. Because you may not pick this item, but if it's in here,
Yeah.
you get pushback.
The town of Bethel is going through what you're going through right now, but in a very orderly way. They formed, at the request of the select board, the town of Bethel, relatively small town, they formed a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and we've been working with them to carry back, because the board said we want you to come back to us, to carry back to the board their recommendation for a declaration of inclusion. And as I said, in all of these instances, these are people who are giving up their own time, just as you are in the evening, to put together something which reflects the way the town thinks and the way the town wants itself to be. And so they will carry back to the board, probably informally, initially, here's what we come back with a recommendation, and then more formally, bring it up for a vote at a subsequent meeting, probably in September. But, you know, that committee may recommend that they do nothing. That committee may say, you know, we want to have trainers come to town to train every person in town. But that's unlikely because.
But you got $100,000, right? I have no problem with, I think we've, well, there's never too much time for about talking for this. I'll stick my foot in my mouth if I say that. But I think we have the understanding, and I hope you guys have the understanding, that these other two board members and the town manager, along with I, totally believe in this. It's just the implementation part that we were having an issue with, and that maybe, I don't know, so Andy is our town person here, and, you know, Bob and Al and Chet and.
Well, we should just ask it, maybe there's other
And then
towns
there
people
might be
want.
other townspeople that would
Well,
put out.
I would go towards what you were suggesting, is to look at what some of the other towns have done. Because my question is the one that I had at the last meeting. It was, you know, and it says development of plans, programs, which are the appropriate plans, programs that advance the intent? What are the ones that are appropriate? And perhaps by looking at, as Chris said, look at what some of the other towns have put in with theirs, we may find ones that would supplement what we have in our handbook to begin with.
But who's gonna do that? And I think that's where you
That's
get a
that
little committee.
Yeah, you
I
get a
have no
committee.
problem with that, to see what they come up with. And Al and Bob and Andy, I mean, this is like, you know, I just hope we're proving that we just don't sign anything that comes in front of it. I felt like I was getting a document in front of me, sign, and then read later. And we have questions, and I believe everyone's saying that they are decent questions, and, you know, and the right tones of voices or whatever to get through to come up with the right document. We want to have a document that we can live by, not a document that somebody can question us. So I think we're in agreement that we need to take the next step and move this to some type of,
To move it forward.
move it forward. And if Bob and Al and Andy, the
It's-
local guy, I keep on forgetting names.
Oh, that's because their names are in front of you.
Yeah, and maybe the town manager starts some kind of, and come back to us in 2 weeks with a recommendation of how we're going to take what from the different towns that Chris is talking about, or.
But is there any other townspeople that might be interested in this too?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying,
Well, that would
committee.
be-
Yeah. But
Hand up back here.
Yeah, so, but I mean,
Definitely have some input on it.
yeah,
Okay.
I
so,
read it through several times and
Mhm.
read it slowly, and I found quite a few items in it very disturbing.
Okay.
so,
we need
but.
input from the citizens as well.
Okay, so, but I mean, I
Yeah.
think we should put it out there from that, and just, I'm just sorry that we even have to have this conversation. I mean, you know.
well, I just think we're trying to dot the i's and cross the
you know,
t's.
No, I'm not talking about this conversation, I'm talking about the overall.
Anybody has.
Oh, I agree with
Yeah,
that, but I think, I'm talking about the conversation on this, I think
No,
we're,
I'm not talking about
It's
this
a statement
conversation,
that
I'm
we want-
talking about.
wanna make.
Why does any human have to have, and that's to me mind-blowing, and,
Especially for us.
you know, so can we, Al and Bob and Andy, if you can get together with the town manager and try to,
I think we should try and have someone from the Chamber of Commerce,
you know,
since they're operating the businesses.
so Lyle Jepson, I know he has, you know, he has signed off on something, and he's a well-respected person up here. He'll help guide through or whatever, and he's knowledgeable and has done, and, you know, and we can have conversations, and Lyle will listen to, our difference, or he'll get me through the policy part and that other stuff. I know Lyle very well, so why don't we take it there that, let's get because Lyle is a chamber, I guess, Rutland County, and he
Rutland County
signed off on it.
But what about KPAA?
Yes,
That's who I was
Yeah,
bringing up.
well, so KPAA, a member from KPAA, and Lyle, and then you three, along with the town manager. And if you want to sit in, but I think we just need, and on this one here, I just think that we need as a board to get across that, how we want to make sure that it's right and that it's enforceable and it's not, what we're doing is not making it so. I'm the interim zoning administrator right now, Al, and it's like you get one person and then they give you 6 people. And it's tough, so.
Well, I think
So
the
we are
conversation
gonna
is good. You can't, the more you talk, I don't know how long and how far. And I think you need to be maybe more specific, at least what I'm hearing, about what you want this committee to come back with specifically, so that they don't come back with something that, you then work,
Right.
just because they changed it, to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it.
Well, that would be the discussion once we know who's on the committee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
So we'll have
put
to
out what
whatever.
we're looking for.
Yeah, so we may need to have a meeting one afternoon or whatever to give guidance to of what, taking from what they have and where we were going the last time and where we're going, and just, giving that and let them go back and forth and go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing those things in, the change that was made and the further explanations, and we're going to take it from there and move forward.
Oh, thanks for having us in.
All right, one other thing, just a question. And it'll be on next month's meeting or next week's, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2
3
weeks
weeks.
meeting?
This one's actually 3 weeks, but we may not get it done. It may be a meeting after that. Like, it all depends on how we.
Right, so, fine.
The 12th is the next official meeting if we were done by then. If we're not,
Right, we're not gonna be.
it would be the 26th.
Okay.
I would prefer the 26th because of my personal schedule. If I'm gonna be involved. If I'm not involved.
Well, you're the chair.
You should
No,
be.
You're the chair.
Yeah, there you go. Well, then we'll have it for Christmas. We'll get it done by Christmas.
You're one of the 3 legs.
I'm a leg, all right.
All right. So
Thanks a lot, guys.
we will be in touch with you
Thank you.
I got it.
as things start to
I'm happy
progress.
to help, but
Okay, thank
it's
you.
bad time right now.
Okay.
Can't believe I forgot your name.
Zoning
right time.
amendments.
Zoning amendments. Is this an announcement
This is,
of the hearing?
we're going to warn the public hearing for September 12th. This is a public hearing notice related to some zoning bylaw changes, which include lighting, signage, setbacks, parking requirements, some clarification on Section 417, accessory dwelling units. It's basically language. The full document is at Town Hall for review, and it's Sections 120 definitions, Section 210 zoning map, Section 215 zoning district descriptions, Section 417, which is accessory dwelling units, Section 427, which is lighting, Section 240 zoning bylaws and districts, off-street loading and parking for Section 432, Section 440 signs, and Section 610 is zoning permits. So there's some clarifications and modifications to the requirements in those zoning sections.
And this can all be viewed on the town's website, the changes?
Yeah, it's all up at this point, I believe, and I will confirm that tomorrow morning.
Redlined, and-
Yeah,
So it's, okay.
yeah, and there will be a red line hard copy available.
So just, well, yeah, but they could go on the site and they could look
Yep.
and see what's redlined and changed.
Yep.
And so when this goes through, whether the adoption of it, does it all get adopted or can pieces?
So Kevin Brown has been talking to planning and to myself. So right now, they have certain things in front of them
Mm-hmm.
that they have pushed through, and then there's another batch of items that they're working on.
Okay.
So you can't, because the way that the red lines wouldn't match the red lines, because some things might
Okay,
be
you said some
whatever.
stuff, yeah.
So Kevin Brown at the last planning commission meeting had said that these things would be brought, the planning commission has motion to put it forward to the select board, so this is why it's coming in front of us at this date. We have up to 1 year to adopt the changes. So
And do
we'll
they
have
to be
another
adopted by the
batch.
town vote?
No,
Are they
so
also-
we'll have another batch that
I'm just
will.
clarifying.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
just gonna finish.
Mhm.
We're gonna have another batch that comes to us, and then at that point, we'll most likely make a motion to adopt it.
Mhm.
And then if people want to exercise their 5% voter's signature,
And require a vote.
then they can require a
Mhm.
vote.
Yeah, because the issue is you can't, the next section, if you adopted this, you have to wait for the appeal period to end and then restart the process, or you can do it all at once.
Okay.
Just curious.
And this is actually part of our next scheduled meeting.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. You need a motion or nothing? Just,
Yeah, you should move to warn the meeting for September 12th,
Make
the
a
public
motion
hearing.
to warn the public meeting for zoning amendments for September
12th.
12th.
All in
Second.
favor?
aye.
Okay, and Jim, as zoning administrator, I think you're up. Short term.
So can you pull up the document?
Mhm.
So FY 2023 short-term rental fee schedule is up here. I'm sitting here as a zoning administrator right now, not as a select board member. But I just want to remind that the select board last year in November or December was putting together a budget for the coming year, which was approved by all of the voters in the town of Killington. And in that budget was because the way that some of the things that are going on in short-term rentals, the enforcement of the zoning bylaws, people are still fighting certain things. Underneath the zoning, it doesn't have as much bite because you have to give somebody a warning. It's like you're a cop in London, stop or I'll say it again. And this board, the select board, when I jump onto that side, we had decided that, and we were open about it, that we were hiring on a full-time fire chief and a part-time deputy chief, and that the fire chief and deputy chief were going to work with taking over from the Division of Fire Safety to enforce the rules of the zoning or ordinance
And do inspections too.
and do inspections. We took in $112,000 for this past year in revenue. If you want to call it revenue, fees, okay? The only fee that we're paying to an outside service is just under $2,600 a month. So call it $31,000 a year, okay? We have court fees that we have to, in order to implement, because once again, the select board put this in, and the voters backed it, I believe, 3-1 or 4-1, okay? Because of violations of safety, fire safety and health underneath the septic rules. And I still have people coming in looking for, saying I have 4 bedrooms when they only have 3. I sleep 10 when you're only supposed to sleep 8, but I have 14 beds. I don't yet have my approval from the Division of Fire Safety, but yet I'm still advertising. I have another house that is a 6-bedroom permitted house in the town of Killington. It's been known for years, but it was a ski share house. So there was no way of getting in, I guess. The person has just recently registered to become. I was actually in the house last Friday. When I walked through the house, upstairs on the second floor, there's 7 bedrooms and a 6-bedroom zoning permit house. But I was told by the rental agency that's gonna take this house over, and nobody here is with that rental agency, okay? And nobody's zooming in from it either. But we're just gonna lock off 2 rooms up here, because I then gonna put a single bed here, a single bed here, to get to 8 people, so I can self-certify, even though the Division of Fire Safety said there would have to be strobes and pulls and all this other stuff in there. I then asked to get to the basement, and I was told that it would be locked off. I go, but I'd like to see the basement. And when I went into the basement, there were 6 bedrooms. So the zoning permit and the septic permit is only good for 6 bedrooms, but there's 13 bedrooms in this house. So it's continuing to go on, and unfortunately, we're gonna have to take the 15 or 20% of short-term rentals, and we're probably gonna have to take them to court. So the fire, can you run through what the fire chief expense and everything else to run this program? And it's in the budget, so.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the fire department budget for expenses, we have 70,000 for a full-time fire chief and 30,000 for a part-time deputy, in addition to benefits and everything else that goes with the fire chief's position, so that would make it closer to 90,000 in expense, 95.
But we got to this point, okay, we're kind of, cart's a little bit before the horse here in a sense. You know, we can talk about chiefs and deputies and all these other things, but the percentage of calls that are going to short terms,
Yes.
okay, is astronomical. And I was opposed to this program early on, before I sat on the board.
And we heard you.
Not really, but, and sitting here now, I understand the need for it, okay? And we do need to enforce, we've set up a program we want to enforce, okay? And there are so many people out there complying, okay? We have 612 people registered, and they're complying and doing everything we're asking. There's a bunch that aren't, okay? And so unfortunately, there are funds needed to bring everybody else into compliance, because that's what he spends his time doing, okay? And so that's what a lot of additional funds are needed for, between that and to make sure that we are being inspected properly. It's not, this is, we had hoped, there's a lot of people that aren't complying, whether it's someone saying, you know, my 2-bedroom place belongs with, has 5 bedrooms, okay? And a lot of just crazy numbers keep cropping up. And so, unfortunately, it does have to go that way. And that's why, you know, the fee structure does need to come up so that we do have the funds necessary, and also the ability that the services that are being taxed within the town very heavily, to, you know, keep up with the safety procedures. So I think where we failed as a board, this is what we put out. We put out a statement, which is on the screen, this is the new fees. But we didn't tell anybody why.
Well, in the budget process, we did, we didn't with this.
Didn't
That's
publicly
correct.
go out
We
and
didn't
say
post what
this.
it was.
We didn't post this and go into the Mountain Times and say, these are the new short-term rental fees, and this is how come and why. And, you know, I spent some time having conversations with residents within the town and business owners and saying, you know, we failed in some points, but the reality is the fee increase is needed because they don't understand how much time is being tied up and we're spending on this, okay, to make sure that the playing field is level, and for both those that all are complying, as well as that they're not creating a hazard for the town with overcharged septic systems, wells that are not have enough water, overdrawn parking for places that don't have enough parking, et cetera. So we're playing a lot of catch-up, okay? But there's still a lot, too, that's gonna, you know, when the fire department responds to all these fire alarms that are going off for short-term rentals, that's a burden for this town. The other part that this does, it allows us, I think, to also continue to move forward and probably not have to do what other towns have done, like Breckenridge and Vale and all these other big resorts that are starting to talk about limiting the amount of short-term rentals. And also, or even Woodstock does the same thing.
I say Woodstock's already done it.
And so I think this is a great step for us to move forward so that we're not trying to limit their business. What we're trying to do is say, it is costing the town money to do this, but we're gonna make sure you stay in business for this purpose. I do take a little bit, you know, studying some of this stuff and some conversations. The fee structure is a little bit off, okay? We jumped our 2 bedrooms up 166%, but we only jumped the 4 bedrooms or more 100%, okay? And there's not many 2-bedroom houses out here in this town. Probably can count them on a hand, okay? There's, so to
But
me.
there's a ton of 2-bedroom condominiums.
Okay.
And they're in on it.
Okay.
No, they
So-
are in on it.
Okay, so, you know,
And I just
maybe
want-
as a percentage, okay?
No, I agree with you on that comment, and I also agree with you where you first started going out by saying that, you know, since I'm on the hiring of a fire chief committee, and listening to Tom Rock talk, who is a firefighter, was gonna be the chief or whatever.
He's a deputy as a volunteer.
Yeah,
Okay, saying that when we were going through it, like the basis of what is the calls, and he has 80 to 85% of the calls out of this building being
short-term.
first response and fire, whatever related, is short-term rentals.
Yep.
And so I get when that sheet just goes out, how people's blood pressure goes up or whatever, and start asking questions such as, you know, well, what are these fees going to or whatever, but I don't even think that fee structure there covers the services that are actually being performed.
I don't know that.
But I don't want to
What
get
I-
into, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
I'm not disagreeing with that. All I'm saying is, it is a little bit off where you only jump one 100%, you jump the others 166, okay? That's all I'm saying with it, and so maybe that should be looked at.
So this is my computer from Lodging Revs, and I just put in the date of August 1st to August 22nd, which is not really full-out winter. And these are just all advertisements that are more than what they're supposed to be. And there's 2 pages,
Jim,
and it's just 3 weeks in the summer.
And the other thing was the self-certifications, because one of the things that people are under the impression that the number of bedrooms you are using it's what does the actual house have, not by what's being used.
we're finding the crazy numbers.
Right, so the issue becomes the self-certifications are something that is being looked at, and the concept that is part of the reason we're hiring the fire chief and things like that to do inspections, so that we will be inspecting all
of the
rentals,
properties.
every
and
rental.
I agree that, but we didn't come out, other than a meeting, we haven't said this to people written. And so there's a lot of chatter going on about what we did. But the reality is, they're doing it right. The small increase in fees, you know, reasonable amount, okay, I shouldn't say small, is really protecting them. Because the reality is that there's a bunch of them out there not doing it right. And it's not on a fair level playing field.
So just let the folks know that they got their hands up. I mean, some of them are new here, that we normally have, we're not ignoring you, we normally have our conversation and then we open it up. So I just want to get there, so we're having our
When
conversation.
you guys are ready, you'll just call
Yeah.
someone in. I
So,
need to go
okay.
next door for a second.
so, you know, I mean, it's just basically, so we've spent well over the $112,000 in FY '22 that just ended, June 30th of '22. Because you probably don't have the lawyer fees worked into everything. And
I
so,
have it here, though.
you know, but we're, you know, we're up and above, you know, the fees between paying for staff to do and then the fire calls and then the lawyers. I know one of the conversations that I got into with a good friend of mine that was on a little early, and I actually had to, what is that word when you do on your phone? You block calls? You know, good friend, but, you know, what are you crazy, this and that and everything, and blah, 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 but, I mean, it's a lot of work. And it's not bad work because it's supposed to be doing septic systems to be controlled, that they're not overflowing, that they are to the permitted amount, fire safety for firemen when they, not just for the people in the building, but I picture at some point that this system, when I ask for someone that comes in for an addition on their house, for their layout of their inside of their house, that when a fireman gets called to a house for a structure fire, where I see in some other towns and cities outside of here, maybe down in New York, but, you know, the firemen can punch up on their computer right there and then, and they know where the bedrooms are, and they're gonna get into them. You know, it's, we put this program in place. Chris was not on the board. It was Chuck Claffey, myself, and Steve Finneran. We sat through 3 different proposals. Every single one of those proposals gave us fees that are still twice as high as this. I see, I think Dave might be gone, but,
Probably still there.
oh, is there more people down below?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can, but, yeah, participants down on the bottom left, because there's not only showing there. But, I mean, I sat with, next to Dave McComb up in, Montpelier in a, short-term rental thing. And, I mean, I really appreciated what a lot of people thought of Killington. We are not going after shutting down short-term rentals. I heard of one ski town, someone told me the other day, that if you buy a house, it cannot be a short-term rental for 2 years for a resale. We're not doing that. I have folks coming to me as citizens asking for short-term rentals to be only zoned up on the hill. And I'm like, that's not Killington. It never has been Killington, and it's not Killington. You know, I also hear complaints, like from the audience this, a little bit earlier, and I agree with those complaints. I mean, you know, there has to be better training or whatever. But I didn't hear this gentleman out here asking us to stop short-term rentals, because he also grew up here as a kid, and he knows what this community is. So, I mean, there's gotta be some kind of balance. You know, I've looked at the structure too. That's what we came up with a year ago, and we just, you know, took a price that felt for adding on the fire chief and the deputy chief and some legal funds. I still think we're going to be less in receipts, in fees, then we are going to be in expenses. This is not just single-family houses, because I'm getting reports of condominiums that have 2 or 3 bedrooms that have 12 or 14 beds in them. I mean, there's the house that I'm like, right now, I mean, it's 3 bedrooms and there's 14 beds. There's another house that's 8 bedrooms, but it says sleeps 16, but it says there's 32 beds. And so I have to say, here's my email to you, please take down your listing, or I'm gonna have to send you a notice of violation. I send a notice of violation. How many days do they have on the notice of violation?
7.
7, and then I have to make sure I have the registered card, or at least I sent it registered. You know, they can refuse it, then we can have that argument, because we've had that one person argue with us, which, by the way, we got the funds for it. But, I mean, I had somebody that argued 298 days of not registering their 1-bedroom unit at that time for $150. 298 days. The fee was, the fine was $61,000, and this board lowered it to $6,100, and it still had to go to our legal counsel for them to realize that they had to pay something. So you could turn it over.
Yeah.
Say just start at the top and bring.
Yeah,
what's
Michael
that?
Jackson.
Michael, you're up.
Hi, how you doing? It's Mike here. I'm one of the 3-bedroom compliant people here, so hopefully that's okay, and had it for a couple of years now. My sense here, I put it in the chat as well, is that I know you mentioned enforcement costs and lawyers' fees. It seems like it's still a small group of non-compliant people. It just feels like the rest of the population is getting spread out in terms of the enforcement fees and costs onto increasing the short-term registration fees, where it's really a known group of bad actors, and they should be bearing the cost of the increase or the cost of the enforcement cost, and not everybody else, just because it's easier. I know it's frustrating for you, but certainly for us, when we did this program, I sat on the original discussion about doing this in the first place. The feedback was it was going to be for the inspections, it was going to be to make sure people were compliant, but we certainly weren't expecting a over 120% jump in fees 1 year into this as well, which I think is part of the frustration. So that's a comment from my side. I'd be interested to hear in terms of additional thinking, in terms of passing on these enforcement and additional legal costs, etc., to the non-compliant properties, rather than to just the entire population who's doing what they should be doing.
I think Jim touched base on that, Michael, if I can just jump in, give him a break. The point being is, he brought it up that we, earlier on this board, I wasn't part of it, came up with this fee structure, but everyone said it was underfunding from where they recommended. Am I correct in saying that?
It was quite a bit under what they
Okay, so it's
recommended.
quite a bit under for one.
75%.
So it's quite a bit less, and so this jump, while I don't want to see it, but it is necessary to get this level funded, so it's not dipping into the rest of the general fund in order to fund this. Again, the town has
maybe
been...
an additional question on that. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you finish first.
No,
Sorry.
and again, the town has been very taxed with the number of calls that it is responding to based upon short-term rentals.
So when you say calls, you're not talking about to me. You're referring
Yes, I'm referring to the fire department. Yep.
So I
And
just
so
wanna
that's
make
what we
sure
brought
we-
in.
Where Michael was saying, like, the fees to do, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. The town loves short-term rental, the town loves visitors, the town loves
100%.
whatever. But there is a cost, and then there is,
So I did notice that the rental registrations are going to bring in an additional $170,000 a year, but the cost of the new full-time fire people are only $90,000 if you include all the additional legal. So that's another area I think could be addressed there if I look at it.
No, the fire chief is 70,000.
Plus
Plus
benefits, so it's around,
benefits,
it's between
so call
90, like,
another 90 for the fire chief.
plus,
Then there's about 35 or whatever for the deputy chief, so you're at 125. And then, to be honest with you, we're probably $15,000, $20,000 without those two over this past year or whatever. And then there's no money in the budget for taking these things to court. And, so if right away, if you're saying 170 more, I'll agree with the concussion boy, not doing the math today, but I already read off $120,000 worth of fire chief and deputy chief. And then there needs to be,
the budget went from 3,000 to 25,000 for illegal.
okay. So you're at 150 there.
Well,
So-
the unfortunate
You're passing on
part,
the non-compliance fees to the compliant population here, and also you're stopping at 4 bedrooms or more, and it sounded like from a lot of your conversations.
I can't, you're talking too fast for me. We stopped at what bedrooms?
So it says 4 or
I-
more.
There's two things. The legal fees that you're lumping in there, you're then passing on the non-compliance people onto the compliance people, which I think is kind of loading the wrong population. And then at the moment here, it sounds like a lot of your issues were with the really big ski houses and the places where they say there's 3 bedrooms, but it's really 13 bedrooms. Why is it?
Michael, all due respect, I really don't think you're listening to what I said, because I said there are some 2 and 3 bedroom condos that are having 14 beds in it, okay? I get your point that it's not fair taxing the whole group of short-term rentals because of 15 or 20% of not being compliant. But then there's 612 short-term rentals in the town of some 2,600 units in town, okay? So I listen to those other 2,000 folks that say, why are we paying for the short-term rentals people's issues? So we're in the middle here.
We're making money off.
And then, I mean, I was alerted to something on a Facebook page, and like to think that $500 was going to make people move from short-term rental to long-term rental. I mean, I'd have to be at $15,000 a year, maybe, because some of these houses, I know it, it's that's what it was put, what it was put to Steve, I, and Chuck Claffey is that some of these fees are less than a day's rent, and that may not be the right way of putting it, but that's how it was put to us. I'm just trying to balance the cost to the town. So when I hear short-term rental people that are in compliance, okay, say that this should not be put on just us because we're good, it should just be put on the bad. But I also hear people that
But it's to help
are
to protect
here
it.
and saying, why am I paying for 80% of the fire calls, when it's short-term rentals and it's only 600 short-term rentals?
and just a clarification, based on the state of Vermont law, we cannot charge for legal fees unless you win that in a court battle at the end. So all legal fees that we expend during the collection process are not reimbursable.
All we can really get is we don't even know what we can get, so to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I mean, basically, it's really, we live in the United States
You
of
went from a
America.
$60,000 fine to a $6,000.
Yeah, but you live in the United States of America where, you take it to court, you pay your court, you pay your lawyer, I pay my lawyer. See what happens.
Let's see what Brandy has to say.
Next.
Brandy? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you're up.
Sorry. Hold on a second. There we go. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Michael was saying, and that, I think you are, again, punishing the people who are in compliance for a small handful of people who are out of compliance. And while I realize there are some 1 and 2 bedrooms that are not in compliance, it seems to me like the bulk of the expense here is coming, like Michael said, from the larger houses, from the septic problems. Yet you've increased my 1 bedroom almost 300%, which is not a small increase. If anything of yours increased 300%, you'd never define it as a small increase. And the 4 bedrooms or greater went up 200%. Meanwhile, the bulk of the problems are with the bigger houses, with the septic problems, so on and so forth. Isn't there a way you can charge the bad actors if there's a call and it's founded, levy a fee? If you have to go and shut them down, levy a fee. But it's $400 today. How do I know tomorrow it's not going to be $500 or $1,000? It just seems to be going up, and all I'm doing is complying and doing everything I have to do to keep my place safe and following the rules here.
It's gone up once. This is the first time we've ever, so to
It's
say
the
it's
third
gonna
year.
keep going
It's
up
the
and up,
third
it's
year.
the first time.
It's the 3rd year.
But
But I don't know,
the,
you tripled it my first year, so how do I know it's
No,
going to
no, no,
happen?
no, 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 no.
That's the
Maybe
original
that's your
price.
first year. But once again, Brandy, I'm gonna say the same thing that I said to Michael. I don't think people are hearing me, but condominiums, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. So you guys are sitting there saying, you're a condominium, I take it, Brandy, but you're saying it's the single-family houses. I'm telling you that, here, the town made a mistake. We took it for granted that when Division of Fire Safety goes into a condominium and passes it, I found out they don't go into every single condominium. So we're changing things that we're going to now have a fire chief, and they're gonna go into every single one of these places. There are 1 bedrooms that have 8 beds in them, and you can't get out of the room. There are 2 bedrooms that have 10 and 12. They are not single-family houses. So
But they're
maybe,
the bad actors,
well, I
so
don't,
charge them.
okay.
I think the other part we gotta look at is that if the fire department is responding, 80% of their calls are to short-term rentals. That says something.
So why not charge if there's a call? If you get the fire department call to your short-term rental and there's a violation, why not assess?
I didn't say there was a violation, I just said the calls are going to them.
A call to a short-term rental could be your client
Could be.
doesn't know how to open the flue or start a fire in the fireplace, and now all of a sudden the fire department is there.
Well, that I can't speak to, but you're
Well,
talking about
I
assessing
can.
We
fees
have-
I
for people
can.
who are not in
80%
compliance.
of the calls of a budget of how much is the fire department's budget? How much is the fire department's budget, including their building? $1 million a year?
If you're counting the building and their
Section of the building and their
They're
equipment or whatever?
250,000 for equipment. They're around, and the building is around another $250,000 a year by the time we're done. I mean, we're talking,
600?
yeah, sitting
So
around the 600 range.
50% of that is 300,000.
Right.
But 80% of the calls that go out of the fire department is more than $300,000 of the budget. But I have to sit here and listen to people tell me that it's not fair because it should be bad upon all of the other property owners. And when we talk about the fire department, we're not talking about the police department that has to go to certain instances at condominiums for fights going on or whatever else going on.
But I think you're talking about 2 separate things. You have taxes that pay for police and fire department, and you have this short-term rental registry, which was made to ensure compliance with your short-term rental rules, and now you're conflating the two. So if the fire department has to go because somebody doesn't know how to work a fireplace, that's not a violation of the short-term rules that these fees were put in place to ensure compliance with.
It's a programmatic issue because the program has to be self-sustaining. That is what the goal of this process is, whatever that cost is to do all of the inspections. We were not doing any of the inspections on the first round. It's something that's come to light that we have to do it because we have so many inspections that aren't being done that have to be done. The state doesn't have the manpower to do it, and we're now going to have to start including that. So when you look at it, it's a programmatic issue. The short-term rentals have a certain number of tasks they have to undertake and a certain budget that they have to expend to make those things happen. And that's what this is supposed to be, basically break even at.
Okay, again, look, I agree with Michael. I think it's unfair that the 1 and 2 bedrooms are getting charged substantially more than the bigger houses. And, you know, I think with what a lot of other people are going to say is that we think we should pass these along to the bad actors and not the people who aren't compliant. But
And I agree.
anything more would just be repeating myself.
And I did agree with you. I think the percentage increase on the is a little tougher. And I agree on that part of it. Next.
Jonathan? Is he there? Yeah. Jonathan?
I'm here. How are we doing?
Okay.
Just to give you a quick background. I've been a owner in Killington for over 30 years, been a short-term rental owner for well over 20 years. Probably wouldn't have been raising my kids on the mountain had I not been able to offset the cost of the property by being able to do short-term rentals. So, you know, there's a significant portion of us, I think, that are out there that are this type of owner, not just people who were potentially speculating on properties, looking to rent them out and maximizing them. I also did, even before that time, I was in share houses. These were never short-term rentals. These were long-term rentals the entire season. And we packed people in like you couldn't believe. You know, every space that you could imagine, there was someone sleeping, and sometimes people sleeping on the floor. So we've got a category of people that are out here that are being looked at as if they are the cause of the problem. You know, I don't dispute in any way that there's a value of protecting the town from the abuse of short-term rentals to some extent, because there is overuse of septic, there is an impact on sewer, there's noise and nuisance that has to be there. I think it benefits the town that legitimate short-term rental owners, and I think they're all in agreement that the town should have regulations and protect their guests, the owners, and the neighbors in the town. So we all want to be good neighbors, and we don't want to have people that are there that are going to interfere, you know, in any way with the quiet enjoyment that people should have on their properties. But I think that the town is making an argument that we need to enforce these issues raised because of short-term rentals, but I think that's misplaced. A unit that has 12 bedrooms now and 30 guests in it, or a 2-bedroom that you've got the 8 beds that are in, you know, only 4 were allowed, is a situation that exists regardless of short-term rentals. The town has an obligation to enforce those because you're not addressing a long-term rental, and you're not addressing, you know, the people who I know, and I know them personally up there, who have weekends like Christmas week, and they invite 20 of their family that are up there into their 4-bedroom house. And they got the kids sleeping on the floors in sleeping bags. You know, there's a reason that you created zoning rules, and the zoning rules were there to be able to protect against the over-occupancy. And once again, targeting the short-term rental people about that issue just seems misplaced. Because having created short-term rental programs, you know, the program he did in Killington is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. It simply pushed the town to enforce regulations that they had an obligation to enforce anyway for years, but just didn't do. Now you're saying the additional people that are needed to enforce these regulations are because of short-term rentals. That's really misplaced. And I think you have to consider it that way. And reasonable fees for the registration of the enforcement are absolutely appropriate. They need to be balanced with some benefit to the town, or shown against some cost or risk mitigation in a relationship to the value provided to those for the fees that they're being charged. I mean, that's only a question of equity. But the proposed fees that are being levied don't seem to be justified in any way or any basis, nor do they appear to give any real value to the short-term rental owner. In a simple math, which I think you've already gone through, Killington's gonna leverage an average of $450 per short-term rental on what should be 850 rentals. The number's gonna be somewhere between 740 and 900. The way it comes out, that's $375,000 in revenue.
Excuse Jonathan, once again, you're the third person to speak. I don't know, like I said, I was in a car accident last Monday, I have a concussion, but if I said 700 or 800, I thought I said 612.
612.
So please, let's not jump the,
There's 612 that you have registered. They're already in the original analysis that you guys did 2 years ago, said there were probably 850 that are out. I'm just saying, at some point when you get through enforcement, you're gonna settle on a number between 700 and something and 900.
and I'm just saying, you threw a number at me that I just wanted to make sure that it was clear.
go the
I
other
said
way.
612.
Actually, just so you know,
I really hope that this was really meant to be a public hearing and one where you guys would hear, right? There are different perspectives out there. You're a select board who would, I think, would want to take into account all the different aspects, right? And you'll debate then amongst yourselves ultimately which are the more important ones. I heard you. I heard that you have constituents that come to you and say, short-term rental bad. These people hurting everything. You have to deal with that on a daily basis. I hear you. There's another group of people that are coming to you and say, we represent a constituency. So just let me get through my statements and then we'll go through this. Because I'll give you the respect of hearing and just hope you can give me the respect of hearing me through. So the entire budget, the way I look at it in the budget lines, are $233,000. This is the general budget expense for public safety, for fire department and for police. And that you've got budgets for library, recreation, municipal management. All of those things are significantly less, to 1.5 to 2 times less a budget than you're proposing is the need for the enforcement of the short-term rental program. The allocation of a fire department, I'm a firefighter, okay? I respond in a combination department. We have both career people and I'm a volunteer. And whether we respond to 20% of the calls or 120% of our calls in a given year, I still have a fixed expense. I've still got fire equipment, I still got a facility, still have all those things. It's a little unfair and disingenuous to say you're going to apply 80% because that's the basis of the calls going out there. You know, when someone is out there and you send search and rescue out and you have people out there for a day and a half to do it, you don't go and say, oh, we're allocating the cost of search and rescue as a portion of that, you know, at 20 times the amount that's out there. You have to have all of that infrastructure in place anyway, you know, to be able to respond and deal with it. And I, as a homeowner there, want the public safety to be there, to be capable of enforcing it. But what I'm saying is that the fee amount collected is so disproportionate to what the benefit should be. And maybe the evaluation has to be, what is Killington doing as a whole in enforcing the short-term rentals? We know where this started, right? We know what we were trying to attempt to do, and it was right. We have to address safety, but we're addressing safety not just against short-term rentals, but for the entire town. Short-term, and not only that, I didn't see anything about short-term rental owners already pay occupancy tax under 32 VSA Chapter 225. I have to make an assumption that some portion of the $417,000 that comes back from the state has to be some of that revenue that is collected that ultimately comes back from the state. I'd also reiterate what the other people said, that, you know, addressing trying to get enforcement to happen and addressing those people who fail to comply really is where the meat of the money should be coming from. It should be, you know, the same way that the state had decided to put surcharges onto, you know, costs for speeding and other types of, you know, vehicle violations and things like that. That's the place that you should be really trying to focus on to increase that revenue. But once again, it so seems disproportionate right now of what's looking to be charged, the value of that collection, and really want to understand, you know, a compelling reason to spend this kind of money on enforcement. What is that cost-value relationship? What is the potential expense to the town that this mitigates, that we should be addressing this population with such a large levy? That's all I have. I just want you to consider it as a view of understanding that there seems to be a disproportionate amount that is going to be spent in this area. We can sit here and say, time is being allocated of many people's salaries to doing this, but don't discount that by that those salaries should have been spent anyway to enforce what was right? That was really what was important. And then start that value relationship on saying what is incremental.
So just a couple of things I just wanted to point out to you. When you talked about the number of units that came out a couple of years ago, that was by one company who estimated the number. They were using Killington as a region. But the company we're using now that's doing our monitoring has always been in around the 600 range. There will not be any dramatic increase over time because that is not the intent of the enforcement. The enforcement is to, as we did in the beginning, for safety and health reasons. And the actual costs are being increased because, as you said, we should have been doing these things all along, which means the inspections, which is what this cost is now this increase is going to now allow us to do.
But again, don't you agree with me that something that should have happened regardless if they were for short-term rentals, right? The impact on septic is the same for a long-term rental. It's the same for the vacation owner who brings 20 people to their home.
The septic is not part of this cost. This is strictly Division of Fire Safety inspections.
But those inspections should have happened anyways. What I'm saying, when you over occupancy, which is what you're primarily trying to address, was something that the town needed to enforce because it's something on their books.
Well,
And
except that,
short-term rentals is irrelevant.
but again, if you didn't have short-term rentals, all single-family residences do not require any inspections in Vermont. All inspections happen on what's considered a public building, and as soon as something becomes a short-term rental, it is now a public building, it requires inspection.
Let's back up on that statement, and part of the stuff that you are saying, Jonathan, as far as your ski share house shoving 20-something people in, 2 or 3 bedroom house, we have been having discussions with the Division of Fire Safety. We have been having discussions with our attorney. You folks keep on saying that this is aimed only at short-term rentals, and the conversations that have been taking place with me as the interim zoning administrator without the other 2 select board members and the council and the Division of Fire Safety is, it is a public building once you rent something in your house. All these rules already exist in there. And so, this is not about just short-term rentals. There will be enforcement on anyone that's even renting houses because that's the way it's supposed to be and it's always been there. Stella, we see.
You're missing my point.
Well, no, but I heard you loud and clear. You also said that we should follow what the state does, but then, at one point.
You're making me repeat myself again. I'm saying that you have zoning ordinances for occupancy within a home.
Right.
You had an obligation in a home, whether it's an individual who's renting or not. They have a maximum amount that they have based on how their property perked for their septic. They have a maximum amount they can discharge into the sewer. Those are all things that you had an obligation to enforce, but you chose not to enforce them in the past.
The town-
You didn't start to do that.
Well. I have not chose not to enforce, and I've been here for 4 months. So please, sir, back off of that statement. You might ask a couple other people. No, you said you refused to enforce. Just so you know, sir, once again, once you rent a building, it becomes a public building. That gives the town the right to go in, okay? And the Division of Fire Safety going in. You want to preach to me about zoning. So in zoning, when you come in and you ask for a permit to build a house, you come in, you give the plans to the zoning administrator. The zoning administrator approves it. The zoning administrator needs to get the septic permit that says it's X amount of bedrooms, it sleeps X amount of people, okay? Then the zoning administrator goes in when the house is completed, and at that point, the zoning administrator walks away. It's a single-family house. They don't have the say to go back in, and we don't have the vision to see that those ski share houses all of a sudden had walls put up in between walls to make little tiny closet bedrooms. Unfortunately, that's what happened. No one refused to enforce the rules.
I didn't say.
But they're state rules, though. Remember, this is not town rules.
I did not. Let's be fair to one another. I did not say refuse. If I used the term you.
You said chose not to enforce, you said chose not to enforce.
The town of, I will correct myself, the town of Killington chose not to enforce it.
That's
If
not
you had
correct.
if you had a share house, which you had inspected, right, and it was properly compliant at the time, and you have a neighbor who calls up and says that I've got 20 people living in this house, that's a 3-bedroom house, you can go in to be able to say that they are not using the house as designed in violation of the zoning.
And that is the one place that it was enforced for years, and we have evidence of that, but it required a actual complaint from somebody specific, and that was not happening.
Correct.
My point is,
And
that's
all
not
I'm
the,
saying but that is what was
but it was,
already an obligation of the town, to be able to enforce those regulations.
remember, wastewater is not enforced by the town. It's a state, that is a state enforcement issue.
It was never my understanding when the whole lawsuit started with the one individual here who we knew was abusing this, who appealed the decision, and that was what stimulated trying to get the short-term rental.
But
regulations.
the town,
Let's
unless
not get
there,
into
unless-
legal
okay,
stuff
yeah,
here.
that's fine.
Thank you for your comments, John.
We can stop. I hope you would keep an open mind here to understand this, that it just still seems disproportionate in the amount that is being spent for what doesn't appear to be a tremendous
Can you
amount of
click on the
value.
chat box a little? How many bedrooms do you have, Jonathan? Jonathan?
You want to get rid of it?
I have a 2-bedroom unit on Pico
Okay.
that's fully compliant, been registered since.
I have never seen your name on any of these complaints, Jonathan. I was going more towards where Chris, I think, was going, saying that up to 2 bedrooms seems a little high compared to 4 bedrooms. That's all I was asking for, and, you know, I don't know, maybe this board goes into a session, and maybe the 2 bedrooms come down, and the 3 bedrooms come down a little, and maybe 4, and then 5 and 6 go higher. I don't know, but thank you for your comments, and I think you and the gentleman prior did make a comment, and I think Chris has picked up on it, and I think I've picked up on it, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
We have
Thank
some
you.
other people, so
Thanks.
let's move on to Greg.
All right, thank you for the time. Also concerned about the short-term rental stuff. I think that one thing, as the gentleman mentioned early on, I think you guys do have a communication problem. That you're right. This went out as an increase without an explanation as to why. And I think that would go a long way to helping quash some of the, as you mentioned, some of the conversations that happen on Facebook and elsewhere about what's going on, right? People are getting the wrong idea about why you need to do this. The other thing I wanted to talk about is maybe there's some, you've grouped it into short-term rentals are the cause of the calls by the fire department. I don't know if you need to, there might be other ways to group it, right? What if you have a short-term rental that does not have a fireplace? Then you're obviously not going to have calls for, the same types of fire issues, right? Maybe you've got, you could also spread the enforcement out to say, look, we've got a lot of condominiums up here, which one of my points was going to be that you've got a lot of large houses that are the issue, not condos. You've said that condos are indeed an issue. Maybe you can reach out to the associations of those condos and put enforcement on them and have them sign something or to make new laws, and the condo association has to say all of our units are in compliance with this, therefore you relieve the burden of that number of units, right? You need a fire chief and a deputy chief to go out because you've got more fire calls, but maybe you've got units that don't have fireplaces that aren't going to need calls. Maybe you've got condos that you don't need to enforce directly because you're already working with the association of those condos, right? Maybe there's different ways to kind of focus on your bad actors without penalizing everybody else. And like I agree with some of the others that have said that the fines need to come for those bad actors. You go in and you find out that there's too many bedrooms in a house because you were in a call for smoke. and great, that triggers a fine. If I'm speeding and I get pulled over and find out if my registration is bad, I get multiple tickets, right? I don't just get the one. So somebody calls out for, fire safety issue, and there's other violations, there needs to be more teeth in some of the other laws to give you guys, some more avenues to collect money for this problem that you're finding, right? I think that, some of the mentions of septic, when I first read about this a year and a half ago, that this fee was coming down, it was on the grounds of how many bedrooms, how many people can you have based on your septic. It sounded to me at the time that there weren't enough rules on the books that you could enforce in any other way, and so occupancy was based on septic. What I'm hearing tonight is that the septic issue, the sewer, is more of a state issue. But I'm wondering, can we carve out some new laws, some new rules about occupancy? As Jonathan mentioned, there's issues with owners, renters, there's lots of different people who are having problems with occupancy who might be responsible for fire calls. I guess I'm trying to figure out, what is the problem you guys are trying to solve? Is it just the number of calls that the fire department has to respond to, and that's eating into a budget that wasn't planned for? Or is there another problem with short-term in general that you guys are trying to solve a problem for?
Greg, if I can jump in real quickly, again, this is before I sat here, but it was stated we were underfunded to start, okay? And so, yes, we're having an increase, but other, proposals sitting before this board in the past said that's not enough, okay? And the board, in my guess, was they didn't want to come out with a hatchet early on, okay? And so they hopefully maybe ease into this a little bit?
No, don't. It wasn't hatchet and it wasn't ease. It was that we are not in this program to make a profit to offset other taxes elsewhere.
But we're not.
And what we found out in 2 years is that it is still charging the full tax base more money to enforce it, so we needed to raise it. This is not a money grab to offset fees for other things going on in town.
Good.
That's
100%.
what that is. So the town manager had mentioned that the state is septic, but just to be clarifying here, that it comes through the zoning administrator, and the zoning administrator has to do all the work to get it to the state.
The state can decide how many can be on a system.
No, I'm saying when someone calls up and says that this house has 20 people in it and it is a long-term rental or a person's private home, the calls come in, the zoning administrator has to prepare all the work to go forward on it. The health officer.
Uh,
The health officer is me, which is the zoning administrator, which is whatever.
Just doesn't sound good.
Okay, so I'm just, I hear what everybody's saying, and it's not a money grab. It's definitely not to deter people from, I wouldn't even think of deterring people away from short-term rentals, long-term rentals, or doing anything in their own house, okay? Other than following their septic and following the fire safety. So that's where I'm coming from there, Greg. I mean, I understand everything here, and I've actually looked at the fees over the last 2 or 3 weeks and myself. I've got a house that it's a single-family house. I could have 8 bedrooms in my house. I'm on sewer. It's 6,000 square feet. Maybe one day I want to turn it into a short-term rental. And I'm kind of looking at it the other way, like saying, or maybe I'm looking at it the same way everybody that has 2 bedrooms or less or 3 bedrooms and less. I'm sitting here saying, you know what? The amount of money I'm told that I can get for a short-term rental, to make sure that everybody is in compliance, maybe the fee's $1,000 for a 6-bedroom house and up. I don't know. But, I mean, that was one of the conversations at the short-term rental program up in Montpelier,
is that basically the town of Killington is trying to make everybody equal, so that if someone does buy a 3-bedroom house, it is at a 3-bedroom, and they're not paying less and then making it into a 6-bedroom. There was another piece that you had said, and I just want to keep on, this is not a money grab. It's to pay the cost of implementing the program. And if people are gonna ask us to stop implementing the program, then that defeats the purpose of having a safe town for fire and for septic. And if we're going to use what others have said as, instead of doing fines and fees and everything else, let's just do this through zoning, then you're going to get a group of people in here that own the other 1,500 to 2,000 units and say, we want to zone a certain section for only, or we want to be like Woodstock, that you're only allowed in Woodstock, I think, 14 days?
Yeah.
Total.
14 total days in a year of renting. You know, I understand, I hear people say, I'm just trying to offset my 3-bedroom whatever, but underneath this program, you can rent your house or a condo for up to 14 days in a year without paying this fee. And some of these 3-bedroom houses and condominiums are probably getting over $1,000 or whatever a night. And, you know, so this board really tried putting something in place to be fair. And if you want us to follow the state requirements, this board, minus Chris, because he wasn't on at the time, but Chuck Claffey, you know, we could sit here and tell you it's 2 per bedroom. That's it. That's what your septic says, 2 per bedroom. Some of the houses, the septic permits that are coming by now say 4 bedrooms, sleep 7, okay? The town is saying 4 times 2 is 8 plus 2 is 10. I mean, so if people are sitting here trying to say that the previous board, including myself and Steve, are grabbing money, I don't like that comment.
I don't think that at all. I didn't say anything about grabbing money.
Others are.
Yes, to the contrary, I've actually defended the program on Facebook to people several times from the beginning and again more recently, because the numbers don't make sense. There's no money grab with this level of fees. That people are crazy to think that there's a money grab when you're only collecting $112,000, right? People jump to that. I understand that completely, right? But the 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom at this rate, you know, the rental, from a rental income, you're not making as much on a 1 or 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4. If there's 6 bedrooms or 8 bedrooms out there, there should be another tier in this fee schedule. And if they're bringing in, you know, if they're the bulk of the calls from these houses, that should be a higher, the fee should reflect that.
But once again, the bulk of the calls are not from just houses. Let's make that clear.
But I think your point's very valid,
And I
Greg.
think Chris and I have both said that, you know, maybe something needs to be looked at there. I don't know what it is, but, I mean,
I think you need more help with different roles. I think a fire chief and a deputy are not enough. If you're the health officer and 6 other roles, right, you need people to do these other things. If you find a zoning violation and you can't get through the paperwork fast enough because you're only one guy, you need more people to get through that paperwork. If we fix this,
I have another person with me, Greg. I have another person. I'm like the field guy, and then I have a person in that's writing up what the field guy says. When we threw those numbers in before, I wasn't throwing in the other person. So we were about $25,000, $30,000 away from the 270 or whatever. I'm telling you, it's all being spent on. But I appreciate what everyone is saying, and I think there's gonna be a conversation at some point amongst the board members on maybe the registration fees for the studio 1 and 2 bedrooms or whatever, but I can't tell you that until we hear everybody and then have our conversation.
Right? You might say fireplace versus no fireplace, and that could go a long way. Look, if you're an STR and you have a fireplace, That's a big part of our calls, therefore there needs to be a different fee for that. If you're an STR and you don't have a fireplace, you're not likely to be the same problem.
Most condominiums have fireplaces. They may have converted them to propane, but what's to stop them to?
Well, then you need to talk to the individual condominiums and say, do you have electric fireplaces? Do you have propane or wood burning fireplaces? And get, you need to divide this up so that not everybody is treated equal, because not everybody is causing the same types of problems for you.
Yeah. Just so you know, and this is just like a side note, one of the I guess the fire people that I've talked to, they say one of the biggest problems is actually pizza boxes in ovens. It's catching fire.
Who would have thought that? Who would put a box of pizza in?
Anyway,
Thank you for your time.
thank you, Greg, for your comments.
You've got a communication problem. You need to get
Before, we don't have a, listen, Greg. We talked about this in the whole budget process. Maybe we didn't get it out.
Didn't go.
Loud and clear, but we had said. So,
We just need to get it out.
Stella,
All right, thanks for your time.
thank you.
Thanks,
Greg.
Greg.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for recognizing me and letting me share a little feedback. I think I bring a different perspective to the whole conversation because I'm a full-time resident. I live here in Killington 365 days a year, minus vacations. And I rent out bedrooms in my apartment where I live. So my question is kind of how that fits in under this, and can that be a separate tier as well? Governor Scott actually has vetoed legislation on short-term rentals because of concern for, quote, discouraging everyday Vermonters from offering their rooms for rent, not as a primary business, but as a means to supplement their incomes, they can pay their mortgage. That's when he vetoed Bill S-79 in 2021. So I actually voted on the short-term rental stuff. I lived here when that was proposed. I followed it every detail. I read every piece of it because it directly applied to me. I voted yes, thinking that it would only apply to full units that are rented out short-term, not to a bedroom in someone's home. So I actually voted yes, not intending for this to ever affect me. I found out it did. I've been registered for 2 years. I've paid the fee. But people who live here full-time, who rent a bedroom, it's a completely different situation than people who have bought a condo or bought a home. I don't make money. I have a net loss every year that I can show on taxes. It just helps me pay my rent so that I can afford to live in town and work here. Other places that have a full home, we talked about just now, they have a kitchen, they have a hot tub, they have a fireplace. I'm just renting a bedroom. They're not allowed to use my kitchen. They can't use my oven. They can't put a pizza box in there. They can't start a fire. I'm here to supervise everybody.
You're no fun.
So it's a completely...
Who wants to stay at your place?
I know.
It was a mess. I'm too OCD. I don't deal with cleaning up my kitchen after people. So it's like, you get a bedroom and a bathroom, that's your space. When we talk about pricing and some of those condos going for $1,000 a night, maybe, I think Jim mentioned that for maybe Jonathan's place for a 2-bedroom condo.
I didn't say Jonathan's place.
Okay, for any 2-bedroom condo. I get emails from Airbnb saying, we recommend, in order to book your place, that you charge $40 a night. I don't listen to their recommendation because for that, it's not worth having strangers in my home and washing the sheets. But an individual bedroom is a completely different scenario than a large house that goes for thousands a night, like we talked about with the 6 and 8 bedrooms. So I would just like to suggest that you guys would consider a different tier or a different area for full-time residents, those of us who choose to live and work here and are just renting a bedroom to kind of make ends meet. It's different, it's not our business. We didn't buy a home with the intention of hopefully making money off short-term rentals. What else did I have? And as we've talked about, I think it's been duly noted, evening the increase where it was a higher percentage for 2 than it was for 4, maybe adding different tier levels. One other suggestion that I had after hearing all the conversation, and there's been a lot of talk about the cost for fire safety to do the walkthroughs. From my understanding, once you've been inspected and have been approved, we're not being walked through every year. So perhaps that's a first-time registration fee when you actually have to have that inspection and have someone come, but once you've been approved, your annual fee would include perhaps that cost for the fire chief to come and do the walkthrough. But I've had a walkthrough, it didn't cost anything, it was great, I'm signed off. hopefully I never need the fire chief to visit my place or to come in any way.
Well, you will, because a lot of the problems that can fall, first of all, are you renting it to just weekends, or are you renting it to locals living in your house for a bedroom? I don't know, Stella.
Week max. I'm not looking for long terms, but I do have.
I wasn't sure. I know who you are, and I didn't know maybe if you were doing long-term rental to somebody, because I'm going to say you shouldn't be on if you were doing long-term rental.
No, more for friends that need short-term help or for short-term rental for helping pay the rent.
Okay. So next up is the bit about the Division of Fire Safety has the right and the zoning, once you're a public building, to go into your house if it's a public building at any time, okay, with the notice of giving it to you. And the issue that we're having is, once again, I think I mentioned it earlier, on a single-family house, when the zoning administrator would go in and give a certificate of occupancy, and then once he leaves or she leaves, there's walls put up in between bedrooms, and all of a sudden 3 becomes 6. The reason why, when it's a public building, they're supposed to be inspected probably on a yearly basis to make sure that that stuff is not happening. So.
And we did touch briefly on the difference between short-term rental and long-term rentals. Again, I have a unique perspective because I am a long-term renter who does short-term rentals. So I've also been able to see the difference in kind of how the two are treated or handled right now. So my entire building that I'm in is a public building because it's rented for long-term rentals. But specifically when I had the fire safety inspector do a walkthrough, the discrepancies were kind of glaring and a little offensive to me as a long-term renter, that like at one bedroom, for example, on the second floor, he said, oh, this would need a fire ladder for short-term renters to be able to climb down in case of a fire, but for long-term renters, it's not needed. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, that it was different for long-term versus short-term, or there were extra things. And I hope that's an area that we can continue to grow and expand to make sure that landlords who are long-term renting are also compliant and making sure their renters have a safe place to be and to live.
So the town of Killington is not writing the state fire regulations. The town of Killington is just looking to enforce it. And now I remember what I was going to say before, like when Jonathan was talking about enforcing the existing rules currently. When Division of Fire Safety walks into, not your house, whatever, but if there is a 2-bedroom house, and each bedroom, or 2-bedroom condo, and each bedroom has 2 full-size bunks in each one of them, they count pillow counts. So there's 4, there's 2 per lower, 2 on top. So there's 4 in a bunk bed, and then there's another 4 in the other, so there's 8 already there. And then in the other room is the same setup, so there's 16 in that 2-bedroom. Division of Fire Safety is going to be enforcing those rules. So
I agree with all of that. That's why I voted yes for the original setup of this structure.
But,
we all know people who live here who are renting their 3-bedroom to 20 people, and I don't think that's right either.
Yeah.
I'm just asking that the board might consider something different or looking more into this for people who are actually residents who are renting a room versus renting an entire condo or an entire home, that there's a different level of income liability.
I would have to take a look at what you're referring to, and Phil Scott saying that he likes short-term rentals to cover whatever. I thought Phil Scott was trying to push for long-term rentals because there's a shortage of long-term rentals. But I trust you because I know you. I would just like to read it. But I also then see that I know the state is trying to pass a rule that says that in order to do a short-term rental, one must occupy the building.
Yeah. That's up north, yeah.
That's up in north, but I also know that the state has said that if a town already has an ordinance in place or a zoning, that they're going to stay away. So I think it's very good that the town of Killington put this in place while the state's talking, because there is no way some folks in this town could be in 5 or 6 houses or more at the same time to be legally renting. So I think on one side, we have to say that, you know, the board back then took an initiative because we did see that there were some things being changed up in Montpelier. And, you know, yeah, they're the state, so maybe they're another 2 or 3 years away, but I don't think anybody here wants to fall into the category of the state taking over short-term rentals. But I think, once again, Stella, when, you know, you would fall more into the studio or whatever, and that's with the up to 2-bedroom unit. So I think we agree that we're gonna have to talk about that. So,
You guys have, out of curiosity, you mentioned there's 612 registered. Do you know how many of those units are occupied full-time?
Short-term rentals.
short-term rentals are occupied full-time?
At least one of them, which is me, is occupied
Oh,
full-time by
oh,
myself.
for you?
And I rent.
I know of one other. I know of one other. But what they did, Stella, was come in to say that they wanted to be a bed and breakfast because they actually go where they cook for the person that stays there. So they do not fall underneath the short-term rental program. And then if you're underneath, like, whatever, if you're renting 1 bedroom out of your house, I think you don't need to go to have your water tested, and you don't need to go to the health inspector. But I don't think you want to be cooking for people also, but.
I actually have been, and I have provided breakfast, so I guess I didn't.
So you may be just filing a bed and breakfast permit with the state of Vermont. But there was one other person that came to me, and I asked them, I said, you fall underneath the state of Vermont because you're actually underneath rooms and lodging of bed and breakfast, and you have a license for it. And you would not, there's a certain number of bedrooms that triggers where you can't get through that, so.
So I guess we're a tiny minority in the short-term rental conversation, but
You're
I
the
do just
second
share
one.
that, you know, it's not making income, it's just helping pay the rent. If we can be a separate little subcategory, that's all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, Stella.
That's it on there.
I'm not seeing any other hands up.
Anybody in here have anything to say?
This one?
About
Just
the
stop the
Bears?
bears.
I agree, if you want to even it out, another way you could do it is, 266%, so you bump the 3-bedroom up a little bit, bump the 4-bedroom up a little bit, to start at that $400 mark.
So
There's a little fuel for your fire.
I'm just lost because, like I said, my mind's not there, but I know this one, somebody pointed me to a Facebook page or whatever, and I started looking at it the other night, and it started off, this 40% increase is crazy. I was like, I don't know where that math is going. Then somebody else said 100%, but if I take $150 and I add 200%, I'm at $300, okay?
So it's like 266.
And if I take the 200 and I add 200%, I'm at the 400, okay? And if I take the 250 and I add 200%,
You're at 5.
I'm at $900.
What?
No,
Wow.
200, I'm sorry, I didn't mistake, but yeah. No, the calculator,
50 goes to
hey,
5.
listen, I'm telling you, I freaking mind, and it's already too late for me. 200%, it's $400. So, I mean, whatever. So I'm just, you know, for somebody who was, I think, mentioned a little earlier, like, is the board just looking that it's not really, this is not a public, like, comment thing? If we did, I'm the one that asked us to make sure we put this on here, even though we were going to approve it another time, I took offense to that we didn't get it out to the public, so I could listen to people. And from here, if nobody else has anything else to say, then it's like, you know, we move on with our board meeting, because I think we have golf course and something else, but then we go into executive session, and then we have a discussion of what intake and notes that we have.
I would agree.
Okay.
And you are right, it's only, two-bedroom unit increased 166%.
So,
Anyway,
So
well, Studio 1 and 2.
go to.
yes, Studio 1, 2, yes.
Town financials then,
Yeah.
and we'll do this
Unless
discussion
anyone else
in
has.
executive. Well, nobody's,
You know, Stella, you didn't know if you had your hand up, but you do, all along.
I figured it out eventually.
There's another button that says lower my hand.
Nobody else?
okay, Chet.
Anything else?
Well, town, we're doing the town.
Yeah, I know, I didn't know
financials.
where we're at with the rest of these.
Can we just
We
jump
have-
right to the, is what's his name still here?
No,
Dave?
Dave bailed to somewhere half an hour ago.
Dave.
The golf course.
Oh, he did? Oh, okay.
Tell him I tried getting him in first if he was here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What do we have in front of us?
Well, we have two sets of financials. One is the year-end budget status report. It's been, as we've been going through the audit and going through some adjustments, it's been modified a couple of times. This is the latest and greatest. Basically, the two, you talk about the items of note. One is the options tax being $185,000 more than the budget as far as revenue goes. So it was a tremendous year there. In addition, one of the expenses that we had budgeted for when we did the refinance of the $2.53 million golf course note, that was refinanced in May. We had the option to make the payments starting in August, which aligns better with our tax collection, so we paid $180,000 less in a payment for that year because we had budgeted what was planned in that area, so we ended up actually missing a year of a payment by 3 months.
So when do we
So
pay for that?
We just paid it.
Today.
Today.
No. We saved 183, or we saved what? So
We
when,
didn't pay.
so at what year do we catch up?
No, it's an 8-year loan. We ended up
Okay.
paying like, I want to say it was $10,000 or $15,000 in interest when that happened. So no, there's no delay of the process. It was an 8-year loan from when it started.
Okay.
So, and as a result, we end up with a pretty healthy $440,000 gross net right now prior to the audit. Those were the two major items. Expense-wise, we tracked very close overall expenses. We are within 100, we were about 80 or 90, $100,000 over on expenses for the year. And we did have a position that we had hired that hadn't been in the budget for that year, so expense-wise went pretty much almost exactly as planned. And that includes an expense of $51,000, is that the correct number, Mark, for FEMA?
FEMA was funded.
Yeah, we had to do the repayment for FEMA. That was not a budgeted item, obviously, so that played into that as well.
We paid them?
We had to pay them back because they disallowed one of our
Yeah.
grants.
When is that paid off? Is that paid off now?
What are you talking about?
FEMA. Wasn't that,
We took a 10-year note for the $588,000 that we spent on
Yeah.
the two bridges. We're like 2 or 3 years into that.
okay.
But FEMA itself, when we made that $51,000, that closed everything. That was from the final
Okay.
appeal that was denied.
We
Yep.
finally said goodbye, Irene.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hello, debt.
Okay.
So, in the end of it, so that's pretty much where the year end stands. And when you look at your year-end treasurer's report, our balance on June 30th was $2,562,771. Our restricted fund balance was $1,971,000. So on the very last day of the fiscal year, we were about $600,000 to the good. That's about as good as we've been. And I think so overall, those numbers look pretty good.
Good.
And Mark has done an outstanding job getting us realigned and organized as far as finances go as we go into this new budget season. And I think we have a very good basis for where we're going.
you have two things highlighted? Is there a
The reason those are highlighted, they've been highlighted pretty much all year on the restricted funds. Those are,
Auditor's adjustment.
yeah, those were beginning balances when we did the end of the year balance last year. the auditor had gone back and made an adjustment.
Okay.
So it's just to highlight that number. And B, that's the budget showing the $1.9 million. And when you go to the current fiscal year, in the restricted fund, we do show the $175,000 that's now in the special projects fund. So we have that line item listed in the current restricted funds report. And our current balance today was a little over $9 million in the account, and we are funding all of our capital line items to the restricted funds before the end of this month.
Okay.
The walkway or whatever is out of here?
It's for the current, it should be, it's gonna, right now, it currently has $59,000 in it, which we were gonna transfer over, but we decided to wait a little bit to see if there was any auditor's adjustments before we move it. We didn't want that to go negative, and then we will move the rest of that over
And that moves over into the
into the special projects fund,
special
the
project.
59,000.
Yep.
And that was because of the language on the.
The language we had with the,
Right.
yep.
So it's just, we just delaying that little piece of it until we see if there's any auditor's adjustments.
Are you okay doing Green Mountain National without David here?
Actually, the best Green Mountain National would be,
Okay.
because he lives it every day.
Mark, you want to pull up here?
No.
I just wanted to go through.
Enunciate.
I thought it was good.
No, it is very, no, it's a
You want to come up here?
it's actually a good story.
The associated.
So in terms of, I may not have the same report, but revenues increased significantly. They're 1.2 for the fiscal year ending June 30, 22. Last year, they were $1 million, so significant increase in revenue. Other areas, their expenses tracked lower, so what you're seeing, and we've seen this in the cash balance, is that they didn't have to borrow money this year, for example. That was a significant event, that they didn't have to dip in April to get the operating cash necessary to get open until receipts catch up in June and July. Right now, the golf course, today, the town made the debt payment. The actual golf course makes the debt payment, but the town contributed a budgetary amount of $117,000. Golf course kicked in the other 70 for the first time ever, so they made their debt payment today, $184,000. After that payment, the golf course still has a total of $450,000 in cash, of which 60 and change is dedicated for their capital reserve fund. So they're in great position right now. The only other debt payment that the course makes is at the end of November, and they'll make that without the town's help, and that's about $60,000. They're in a good position to make that as well.
So the $183,000 that was just paid
Today,
yep. How much of that did the golf course pay?
70,
70.
even.
So they're making about 130, I think that was the 135 or whatever, somewhere around there? The 60 in November plus.
60 in November plus the 70. So that's, and this is, these are firsts.
Right.
So they're definitely on a better path. Weather has been cooperating, the course is, the numbers are good. For the month of July, I want to say that they were up over last year,
Yeah, we had some numbers on that.
$20,000 in net before capital.
And just, on the treasurer's report, the pro shop had on June 30th, $347,000 in it without any loan money going to that, and $45,000 in the restaurant. That's the treasurer's report for the June 30.
June, okay, yeah.
June 30 cash.
So the revenue for July for golf was $36,000 over what it was for July last year.
And we thought last year was good.
Say again, please?
And we thought last year was good because of.
No, it's the right trend. If you're, We're viewing it just basically on a trend line.
So the only thing I have like on this here is, you know, listening to Brown and everything about, we'll know every single, you know, category or whatever. And then I take a look like merchandise on page 1, but, you know, all of a sudden now like this year is 2,500, but there's nothing to match up against last year. Then I go to the page that has restaurant, and so page 1.
You looking at June 30, Jim?
Page 4
Or July 31st?
for July.
July, yeah.
Okay, but then there's like uniforms, laundry, like, you know, equipment repair, maintenance, and, you know, there's like no number last year, but then all of a sudden there's a number. There's a budgeted number, you know. I mean, when are they gonna actually give us where everything is? Or are they never gonna get there? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in, there's line items that I would question normally, you know.
The reality is that all expenses are tracked through NIMRIC, which puts the onus on us.
Just so you know, the report that David was going to present, I just put it up. He had sent that just before the meeting to compare last year to this year as far as revenues go, rounds, and labor.
And he told me one August weekend was the busiest weekend he's seen in the 5 years he's been here.
Okay.
And there's a golfer there, the course is in great shape. Top of the world.
Well, when you look at it, you know, obviously they're gaining more revenue per round too, which is even, you know, name of the game.
From a scratch golfer?
Just itchy, I'm itchy, more itchy than I am scratching.
Scratch is like single digits.
No, scratch is 0.
Oh.
Scratch is 0.
Oh, okay, I thought it was like a 1 or 2.
No, it's a no handicap.
Oh, no handicap.
So do we need a motion to accept these, or?
From the bugs bite.
A motion to accept both treasurer's reports, and a motion to accept the preliminary, let's call it preliminary year end, because until the auditor's done, it's not confirmed.
Okay.
I think those were the beginning.
Motion to accept the town financials.
Yeah, so we can accept it as presented, knowing that it might change.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we'll present that when we get it.
Okay.
Motion to accept the
All
town
in favor of
financials.
accepting
As presented.
please say aye.
Aye.
Motion to accept Green Mountain National Golf Course as presented. Aye.
Aye.
Motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Year end or current year? There's two of
June
them.
30th, 2022.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the end of the year.
That's the
Yep.
end of the year.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then there's the July one.
Motion to accept the treasurer's report for July.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're all good there. Do we have a driveway permit?
I have 3 of them.
Okay.
2, well, we'll have a conversation about the one. The project Alexander Green on Timberline Drive is requesting a driveway permit off of Timberline Drive for his horseshoe property that he has. I have a sketch with the plan, and I have visited the site. It's acceptable. There's no, you know, basically it'll be a standard culvert that's listed in the thing. There's no special conditions. It's a standard driveway permit, and I would recommend that be approved.
What's the last name?
Green.
Alexander Green.
Motion for the town manager to move forward with a driveway permit for Alex Green.
Second.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
The second one is up in Little Sherburne. Doug
Please help,
Senical.
you put a photo on. Should I just sign this?
It's actually,
I don't know.
We got
yeah,
signed.
you're supposed to sign that.
Oh, I didn't sign.
Yeah, everybody's got to sign that. Doug Senical bought a property up in Little Sherburne, on Little Sherburne Road. It's a driveway that existed without a driveway permit for years. It's already there. There's no issues, no special conditions, and except about
Well,
his
special
camper.
conditions on that.
Are over on that seat.
Well, no, but you should, that there, you know, he's come in and he shouldn't be able to put a camper up there for, we don't allow campers on properties.
Right.
So
Well, I mean, I
he's
think we
asking
could-
for a driver's permit and
But the-
driveway permit, and if he never comes to me for a zoning permit, then how do I know? But if you put it in the driveway cut, then he should not be able to have a camper on it. You know, there's no structure or camper or whatever, you know, you must file for a zoning permit. That's the problem that happens, like you just sign off on a driveway permit and then I start getting phone calls that there's a camper up there and it's been there for a year or two and, I don't know, these stupid select board just gave driveway permits.
Well, we got, one of the things
That's what I
that.
did for all these years.
One of the things that we did look at, I looked at a couple years ago, is something that I think would be a much better process, is the driveway permit should be a two-step process, where,
Like the V-Trans.
like that, where you don't get it recorded until we've already inspected and it's
Inspected,
built
it's done.
correctly. It's,
I would agree.
you know what I mean, it just hasn't been how it's been done, it's something that we need to address.
There's be no living on the property until zoning permit is filed.
Request for zoning permit to construct a residence or place trailers.
Do we need to sign this, or are you
Yes, the same
sending this
thing, that's
back
a
to
no.
him?
No,
Motion to accept.
we're approving it with that condition.
Oh, okay. All those in favor with this condition added to it, please say aye.
Aye.
The third one is one that I had looked at, well, was presented to the select board before, we didn't actually review it. I did want to meet with our engineer. It's the in-stone design property off of Anthony Way.
Uh-huh.
The issue that we had is the existing ditch wasn't the original way it was set up, and it actually drains through one culvert and then right out into somebody's front lawn. That's not where the flow goes currently. There's actually an existing runoff ditch, or even possibly a stream ditch, and there are evidence of wetlands available. So my conversation with our engineer was, you know, we had two choices, either to approve it and tell them to go to the wetlands, or,
He's staring at me, I'm not even talking.
no. So,
Self-conscious.
it's either that, or the other option was, which is the one I recommend, is I was gonna send a note to In-Stone Design and let them know that they needed to get corroboration from the Streams Division and the Wetlands Division, because they may actually modify how the driveways, it may not be able to go in where they're requesting it at this point. It may move one way or the other. It's not gonna eliminate the driveway, but they're gonna have a say as to where it goes and how it's constructed. So I wanna return this
So when
to
you
them.
say in-stone design, who is the applicant?
It says property owner, In-Stone Investments.
Who's signing off on it?
I can't read that signature.
And it's on Anthony Way?
Yeah.
So
I
what
mean,
is,
if it's a corporation,
Which
isn't
one
it
of
supposed to
those is it?
have a signature of the applicant? That's
Well, there's a signature, I
There's a
just
signature, you
can't read it. I don't know who that
There
is.
is a signature on it.
Well, is there a printing sign there?
probably what's his name? I would say, so what is your,
What I want to do is tell them to hold that till they get the wetlands people out there to look at it and see if they agree with the location.
So then we're not accepting.
You're not doing anything, I'm just informing you that that was presented, and I'm going to go back to them and say, go get the rest of your permit things
How far
done.
up Anthony Way is this?
It's right on the hard bend to the right,
A
just as you
hard
get up
turn.
there. It's a hard turn.
Is it on the
There's
right
two,
side?
left side, two houses, and then there's a vacant lot.
right here?
They
And
own
it's-
it now?
Yeah, they bought it as connection to the back. That's the sketch.
No,
Right on
I
that
thought someone else owned that property.
Here's another thing that I'm running into.
I thought,
Even if it's land and it's a driveway, we need a, rather than a drawing, I mean, we need to be getting.
We need to update the language, because right now it calls for a sketch.
I
We
need,
need something to scale.
Yes.
yeah.
It's not everything has to be engineered, but
Right.
something that
That we can
you
understand.
can understand.
And how they always addressed it was, you put a stake up there, and then we go physically look at it, and we can see what they're talking about.
Is this number on the lot, by any chance?
That's the parcel number.
No, it's in the book, but is there any?
There's actually 2 stakes out there, if you go see
I
it.
know the person that bought a lot right on that corner, and I'm just curious if this is the same lot.
Yep. So I just wanted to inform you of that.
They're gonna be looking for a driveway to have to get for the new owners.
Then there's a request.
I'll tell you right away.
Where'd it go? From the Chittenden Dammers, which is a Vermont Association of Snow Travelers, a vast group, asking for support to bring a multi-use trail, including snowmobile access to the Killington area, specifically to town businesses. They're applying for grants and permission, and they're asking for if we would sign this letter of support.
Sure, but it's gonna come up to the town of Killington is interested in whatever, but then the landowners are gonna have to give the.
Yeah, they
Right, this
know
is
that.
just saying we support the project.
I think,
The
in
concept.
talking to him, I think that a lot of
I've
it's
spoken
on
to
the
what's
project.
his name?
Yeah, yeah, Rich, yep.
McCoy.
Sounds like it's gonna.
Yeah, it's Rich McCoy that sent it.
Yeah.
So if you just
You
make a
wanna
motion to
print it?
authorze me to
Oh, it's just
sign
for
that.
you to sign?
It's just one it says business name, phone number, signed and printed name.
Yeah.
Or it could be the chair, whatever you guys desire.
So the town of Killington,
A motion.
and town mission, so let the
Yeah.
town manager move forward with signing the in favor.
Letter of support.
Letter of support for Chittenden Dammers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like everyone's in favor, but all in favor?
Aye.
And just another piece of information, as of last week, we got our new mower. The Kubota came, and it's a much heavier duty machine. It's working good so far. And
So far?
so far.
You're
Right now-
weak into it, it
Yeah,
better
we're-
be a lot better than
Oh,
so
I mean,
far.
you just get to the point where, you just don't.
You don't
you're not
trust any of
sure.
them?
No, you don't trust any of it. So right now, and that's all I have for a manager's report tonight.
So can we get a little deeper into the email that we got from the agronomy guy from Brown Golf on the equipment? Did everybody get that email?
I think I did, yes.
I got it personally, and then you sent it out, I think. You sent it out as an FYI today? Did you send it out to everybody?
I sent it the FYI I sent today
From David.
was from David, which was that other report.
There's something in, you sent
I
out
got the-
something
I
for
got the
about,
David report.
there's something out there from the guys from Brown Golf on the equipment, it's 9 months to 18 months, or whatever.
There's a
Oh,
long,
I
Did
saw
you see
that
that?
one.
Yeah, it's somewhere there.
It's about ordering things now because of how long they're waiting for
Right, and
things.
as we recall, we had asked them in July to present us how that plan worked with all the payments, and
So what I'm getting at is if you can find that email, and it came.
I
who
found it
did it
right
come
here.
from?
It came originally from Aaron Schroeder,
Yeah, so Aaron,
but it went to you, Jim,
yeah.
personally.
Aaron, you
No, it
got
went to
Aaron Schroeder
town.
right there.
Yeah,
So click on him, and then,
no,
no,
Go
it is-
back,
it is
go
the one
back.
above, the select board is meeting, whatever. So select board, read on that.
it's 11,
My
go to,
response to
no,
him.
go back up,
Go-
scroll up. No,
No,
go back to that email,
David Boyer.
go to David
Back to the
Boyer's.
middle one.
Oh,
No,
this
no,
one?
no,
Yeah.
Go to
Now
that.
scroll it's in the chain, down there.
Right there,
Okay.
dear Mr. Half.
Okay.
So I'm reaching out to gain a little insight as to where the town stands currently on the approval of the equipment requested for Green Mountain National. Didn't we reach out to them to ask them where they stood for,
Yeah.
whatever?
It was
But listen, given the country's current, whatever, economy, we're all supply line facing, availability and pricing, it's of my professional opinion that if approval of the requested equipment will be granted, that we seek approval as soon as possible. Currently estimated delivery times of the equipment, whatever, I can't read all, if you can move it, with the game of, and I'm even seeing 18 months delivery times on certain pieces across our portfolio. Prices are extremely volatile right now. And he goes on to say that they're not even like Toro is not, currently Toro will not lock in pricing any equipment ordered. Is this the response that we got back from saying we want to know the pricing?
This is the first thing we've had since they said they were going to update the capital fund to show us all the
Yeah, it's
payments.
like, so now all of a sudden, he says that he hopes this email finds me well. give
And
you
they-
two. And so what I'm getting at is like we, the board, asked for information, and what I got in front of me here is like, we better hurry up, but I can't give you pricing. That's what I read in that.
Well, that's because Turo is
Did
not,
they give?
No, it's
no,
because they
Turo won't
haven't.
lock in a price.
Yeah, but what they were supposed to do, remember they gave us the 5-year capital plan, and
Yeah.
then there was the cumulative payments? They were supposed to say, this is how it fits.
Yeah.
Is it gonna work? Remember, we were at that, and
And one of those
Mark was at that
pieces
meeting
hasn't
too,
shown
and
up
we
yet.
have not seen that yet.
One of those original pieces hasn't shown.
No, you didn't even get this. I just saw this today. Well, this came yesterday.
But what I'm getting at is that how do you do a budget, Mark, with this email saying, but yet it's almost like a blame coming back to that we're not giving them information, but yet we asked for them. And the same thing, like, we gave them approval 3 years ago to put up an awning.
Right.
They never did it. Awnings were around 3 years ago, okay? And now, each year, whatever.
Well, the
we're
price
asking
got
for,
really
whatever
stupid this
comes
year.
in. I'm like, we already approved you to do it. But the issue that I have is that, you know, how does one, Mark, work a budget that if you don't know if your first payment is gonna be 8 months from now or 24 months from now?
Pretty difficult.
So who else is doing it?
Well, I think what we should have Mark do is get a hold of him. And
Well, in all fairness, there's a distribution problem there, because I am not the point person on any of it. So pick your battles, take that one first.
Yeah, I think
Well, part of what,
financially, Mark needs to look into it.
yeah, part of what they ran into with the awning was, the first year we approved it, they wanted to do the roof first, and we did that. And then the price tripled
Yeah.
when they went back to have it put in, and they said, we're not doing it now. So now they're thinking of doing it next year.
So number one, if we can answer that back right now from you as a town manager, because are you included? or
I
not?
wasn't, no, it went to you and copied 2 golf people.
That's a me.
I mean, this went to you yesterday.
Then how did it end up to us?
'Cause I sent it
Well, they got
forward.
He must have forwarded it.
I forwarded
It
it.
got
to you.
forwarded to me.
I forwarded.
you go.
Your name's on it, you're the point person now.
Then then Chet, you forwarded it, but then attached a bunch of
Well,
stuff?
no, David sent me this email,
Yeah,
okay, today,
yeah,
and I forwarded this email to you with the monthly report,
all right.
and then that was all
That
part
was
of the
attached
email
to-
chain.
okay.
We need to tell Aaron that Jim Half is a select board member. He is not the
Well, my reply is
finance
not even
director,
He's also the health guy
the health guy.
and the
zoning-
interim zoning guy.
Scratch golfer.
And a half hole if you talk to some other people.
Itchy golfer.
But we need to
Actually,
send
the
him
only
an-
reason I got that was because, actually, I don't even think I got it from you guys. I don't even see that one. I just see the one that David sent me today.
I thought I sent it.
You might have, but I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so it's
I might
just
have sent
goofy.
it to you from
David
email.
doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I get this?
Mine came from you.
You know,
Yeah, because I sent it this afternoon as soon as he sent it to me.
that I sent it to you.
No, I got one from David. See, David had that
David
attachment
did.
on that
Chet, this
email.
email should be discussed as soon
Oh,
as
because
possible.
I sent to David,
Right.
I said, the board is meeting tonight, I think you should get this to like the proper people.
And then he emailed me that attachment.
I didn't look who it was attached to
Yeah,
or
no, I
anything.
didn't.
I'm just
I saw it,
looking
I got it from David. So at around 4 or 5 o'clock, too. It wasn't early. So I will deal with them.
Well,
Well, Mark actually will start.
but number one, I think you should attach Mark to that email,
I already sent it to him.
you know, and then Mark, you tomorrow morning get off like, guys, I'm the finance director. I do the budgeting for your capital equipment. not Jim Half.
And I've brought it up to David and Robert about if they're looking for more equipment to put a package together to bring to us and incorporate what was there before.
Yeah, but what I'm worried
No, and
about.
they said, we haven't gotten the first stuff we ordered, that's why we haven't put anything together for the, for
What I'm
we'd like
worried
to
about
get.
with the supply chain problem is that they're getting us to say we approve this stuff here, but yet we don't know what the price is, because when it comes in, then they're gonna set the price.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, they're gonna come with another set of stuff, and we may be over budget, and I don't want to do that.
I mean, right now, they gotta, at the very least, tell us what it would cost if we did it today, and then we'd have to put an inflation factor in it just for conversation.
But they're saying in that one email, they're not even giving costs, they're just,
Right.
it sounds like my wife going for an
Turo's not
ID4
locking
Volkswagen. Put $100 down, when we decide to deliver it, we'll tell you how much it is.
Yeah, I
don't know how
think
you
Mark,
work
I
that.
think it'd be better if Mark had a conversation with
Yeah.
him in terms of what, what pieces are out there
Yeah.
and what's.
I mean, we still have, there's pieces from last year that we still haven't received.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah, so I think that's what we gotta.
We don't even know what those costs are gonna be when they hit.
Well, from the
Those we actually had
documentation that I
leases signed
have,
on.
there
Those
was,
were- yeah,
Those we
lease,
signed a
yeah.
lease on,
that was a
so
quote.
they should be holding that.
Oh,
No, the rules are changing.
I said they
Sure, the
should be
world's
holding
changing, So,
Have a look at
Well, we
it.
do
Golf course is
have
operating
supposedly
better.
permit.
We don't have these pieces. I don't know. Do we
Well, the
really
question
need
is,
them?
and that would be the other part of the analysis is how much of what we had planned to spend in payments are we not spending, and how much of that is included in that net?
well, that should be in our capital.
Right.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to forecast, not for next year, what it looks like when you do 5 years, because these leases are 4 and 5
The
years.
challenge is where I'm going is that when I take a look at the golf course financials, and there's some 300 and something thousand in there, you made a comment that there's $60,000 that is in capital. But
That's,
out of that should have been money that they should have been spending. It shouldn't be out of the 3-something minus 60.
there's 60,000 in a fund, in a capital fund, that's the balance of last year's spending.
Which was supposed to be going towards equipment that they should have got in, but they didn't get in.
Hopefully not all of it, but yes, you're
Some of it.
correct. There's about 30,000.
Yeah,
Then the town has a budgeted in August or shortly thereafter, there's a $100,000 town appropriation for the capital equipment.
Yep.
So that, of course, will drive that up to $160. Then they buy new equipment and they spend 50 from last year's, from last year's lease and 50 more from the new lease. And, I mean, the math has to cascade so that that fund never goes negative and that it's sustainable, that's all.
all I'm getting at, Mark, is that if we say there's $60,000 in a capital, and 30,000 of that was supposed to be spent last year on a capital lease
Sooner or
program.
later, it's got to be paid out.
Sooner or later, it's gonna be paid off. What
Absolutely.
I'm afraid is that someone, not you, someone is gonna start looking at this and go, oh, we got 60,000 here, and then they don't realize that 30,000 is already spent.
That's why I don't
Right.
give that information to them. I give it to you guys.
And that was passed on to them, that they have to include the original lease in the money that they get the next year. That has to come off the top, and what they can look at is just the balance after that lease is paid for,
But it's
which is
easy-
really what you just said.
It's really easy for someone to forget about that payment if it goes
And just go spend
24
the money.
months.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it shows up and they go, oh,
We forgot.
we forgot.
Okay.
Golf course is doing great. Let's just keep it
There's some administrative issues that need to be
down. Yeah,
Yep.
addressed.
Okay.
that's it for me.
We only have 2 people on. Do you think they have anything beyond to add? What do you have?
Just quick for Chet, if you need me for that committee to look into this,
Yeah.
this stuff here, I'm available mornings.
Okay,
I mean, I fit
so
you
the
in
answer is
morning.
yes, I need you, and you're gonna help set it up.
All you gotta do is tell me what morning you want to do it, and if it fits my schedule, I'll let you know.
Oh, if it fits your schedule.
Well, shit, I,
Wednesday.
because I'm all tied up all afternoons and night.
What Wednesday or Thursday works for me.
Yeah, okay, fine, so we'll look
He's
into
already
that.
doing
Yeah.
I'll let you know tomorrow.
All
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Andy.
Or
okay,
you know what? You guys are welcome.
yeah.
My volunteer time,
That's it.
okay?
All right.
Tell
Yeah.
us
Get
about
me
it, tell us
going,
about
Chris.
it.
Is there any,
You're gonna have a hard time walking out of here.
You don't have a, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
any-
You know, we have harassment on volunteers too. Doesn't that go for
Yes,
anyone that's
absolutely.
committees?
Yes.
Hey, wait a
They have to
second.
follow.
Yes,
There shall
Jim.
be no, we don't need that. We have it already in our handbook. That goes
That's only
to,
for
okay.
employees. It's
No.
not for me.
Actually,
No.
just so you know, it's also included in the conflict of interest policy that goes to all the volunteers. It actually is there.
Because I remember putting it in.
Jim's got a problem because he's tied to both documents. He's elected and he's paid.
Okay. Is there
Okay.
A lot of
Listen, chat.
other business
I'll let you know
before
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Other business.
executive session?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, we need to go into executive
I
session.
mentioned mine earlier, so I don't have anything.
Personnel and contracts.
Okay.
Okay.
Executive session at 9:37.
In favor, aye.
Have a good